y'all hear me? Okay, or any of the audio okay? Can y'all hear now? Can y'all hear now? Can you hear me now? Okay. It's going up in OBS, so I hope nothing can be heard. No difference. Hang on. Alright, please tell me if something changes. How's this? Testing, 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 testing. I only started Pikmin 3 Deluxe, nice. Okay, so as long as audio balance is good, it's been like a couple weeks since I've got on OBS. As long as audio balance is good, I'm okay. Anyway, we're going to be breaking Xenoblade chapters. This is going to be a really chill stream if you're joining, I guess, in the VOD or whatever. I found a free day tonight, or free night tonight, I guess I should say. Felt like streaming, felt like talking about Xenoblade, as per usual. So we're doing Xenoblade chapters. It was a subject that I was thinking a lot about. I've been thinking a lot about recently. I saw Anel make his list, so It's kind of inspired me to make mine. Saw some people in general in the Xenoblade community, Discord and stuff, making some Xenoblade chapter lists, so I thought, why not give my take on this? Okay. So just have some chill Xenoblade music playing in the background. I guess my chat's really behind. This is like a big delay or something. Huh. Okay, just to test the delay. If you can hear, when you hear this message, post in the chat. We'll see how long that takes. So does that mean you heard me? I was trying to test how much the delay was between real time and what's coming on the stream. Okay. Alright, well, whatever. Okay. So, yeah, I guess we can just get started with this. So I have these, went ahead and made, like, the skeleton of the tier list. I have just S+, S, A, B, C, D, F. I don't think the Xenoblade games tend to be very good. I don't think too many of these will go into D and F, maybe not even C. It may not even be a whole lot in C. These tend to be really, really good games, but yeah, I'm gonna base this off. So I think my criteria for ranking these is gonna be like mainly story. I'm gonna give more credence to story stuff within the chapter than gameplay stuff. Although I will give some credence, like gameplay stuff plays somewhat of a role. If it's a particularly interesting area that you explore in that chapter, then I'll rank it pretty highly. Or if there's like a really good boss fight, or you know, that kind of stuff. I will factor that in, but I'm gonna like mainly story. Mainly story. Look, Xenoblade 3 Chapter 5 is F. Alright, hold off. Hold off right now, because you may be disappointed in my opinion on that one. So I think we'll start off actually by going kind of in reverse order to how this is structured. We're actually going to be ranking the Xenoblade X chapters first, because these are going to end up being the lowest. There's gonna, as you'll notice, there'll be a pretty solid difference between the Xenoblade X chapters and the Xenoblade 1, 2, and 3 chapters. The other reason I'm doing this is because, making me funny, yeah. The other reason I'm going to be ranking Xenoblade X chapters first is because, well, Raheen hasn't seen much of Xenoblade X beyond chapter 5 yet, so I'm going to be just going through them, not fully explaining everything, and just kind of getting these out of the way. Alright, so Xenoblade X Prologue, literally this is just from character creation, waking up in stasis, to arriving in New LA. That's literally all the prologue is. But, that being said, there are some really, really cool moments in the prologue. I have my monitor up here, that's why I'm looking this way. There are some really cool moments in the prologue. I absolutely love the scene, either of the two scenes, like in the prologue, where they're coming on out on this vista, and you really get to experience the world. Cross and Elma, emerging out to see Primordia for the first time in that really crazy shot of Mira, the sweeping shots of Primordia with all the indigents running around, the music playing, all that's great. And then of course them coming into New LA, and Theme X is playing, the main theme of Xenoblade X, which I think personally is the best main theme of all the Xenoblade games. I think Xenoblade X is the best main theme, Theme X. That's my personal opinion. It's my favorite, at least, of all 4 Xenoblade games. Oh man, they're playing In the Morning Mist. Holy crap, this song is pretty incredible. Anyway, so I think those moments elevate Xenoblade X Prologue more than it would be otherwise. I think I'm still gonna put the X Prologue in C tier. Just because it's very short, not much happens, just Cross meets Elma, and they do a pretty good job getting the player into the world of Mira and kind of setting the tone for the adventurous discovery feeling that you get throughout a lot of Xenoblade X. I think that's great. X Chapter 1, I think, is just Lyn showing you around the city. So, not a whole lot happens. At all. It's just Lyn showing Cross around, like, the administrative district and the things you can do there, and showing them to all the districts, and Doug crashes a Skell. And that's about it. So I think X Chapter 1 goes to D tier. Really, not much happens at all. It's short, I guess, so it doesn't last very long, and I guess it gets you into the game because it's so short. But you know, it is what it is. I'm gonna kind of name these tiers before I go. F is garbage. D is like mid. C is like okay. B is like, we're gonna say getting there. A is great. S is like phenomenal. And then S plus is like best of the best. That's gonna be kind of my how I see these tiers in my mind, at least. So yeah, X Chapter 1 is literally just Lyn showing Cross around New LA. So not much there. X Chapter 2 is, I think that's the first encounter with a tyrant. Cross, Elma, and Lyn go out and plant a probe. They encounter a tyrant for the first time, and that's about it. You get to hear Uncontrollable for the first time, and then also they come back and Vandam introduces the divisions. That I think is actually a pretty good part. They do make the divisions feel a lot more important than they actually end up being. The divisions don't end up mattering at all in actual Xenoblade X gameplay, nor in the story. But they do make them seem kind of important, which is like world building, so it's kind of cool. And I do like getting to hear Uncontrollable for the first time. I think they did a good job setting up, like, Chapter 2 was a good job setting up how dangerous the Xenoblade X world is. I think that's pretty cool. Still though, I'm gonna put it here. That's fine. Yeah, Commander Vandam in Xenoblade X. He was the Blade Commander. I think something you'll notice as I'm ranking the Xenoblade X chapters, the Xenoblade X main story is not the big pull of the game. Oh my gosh, I love Therian Archipelago. That's the song that's playing right now. But Xenoblade X is hard carried by its battle system, its world, and its side quests, which are like the absolute best part of the game. Honestly, probably the best of the series, except for battle system. I think Xenoblade 3 wins out in battle system. But Xenoblade X's battle system is great. Its world exploration is the best part about the game. Again, every single Xenoblade game, every single Xeno game has a Van something. Vanguard and in Xenoblade 1, there was Commander Vandem of Blade in Xenoblade X. There was Vandem in Xenoblade 2. There's the Vandem line house in the city in Xenoblade 3, plus Guernica Vandem. There's Vandercom in both Xenogears and Xenosaga. So Vam is like the Cid of the Xeno series. So yeah, there's a Commander Vandem in he's this character. You probably remember him. You'll probably remember him when you see him. He's actually a pretty entertaining character. Not you. Where's you? This is Commander Vandem. You may remember him. He's a real burly dude. He has a nice mustache. He makes Tatsu food jokes along with the rest of the cast. Yeah, anyway, that's Chapter 2. X Chapter 3 is, I believe, the first encounter with Prones, which are the first, like, glimpse into the Ganglion alliance, or the Ganglion coalition. Really, it's after Chapter 3 where you really start getting into Xenoblade X. Because after Chapter 3, you unlock squad missions, and squad tasks. Oh, really? You thought Xenoblade 2 was the first one? Yeah, no, Xenoblade X had a Vandem before Xenoblade 2. Yeah. So, and I believe Vanguard in Japanese is Vandem in Xenoblade 1. Colonel Vanguard. I love this song. I love this song. Let me make sure. Okay. Yeah, so those Vandem before Xenoblade 2 Vandem. Also, any character who makes food jokes about Tatsu is already a good character. For the most part. I like Commander Vandem in Xenoblade X quite a bit. But yeah, X Chapter 3 is like the first like real chapter of Xenoblade X. You infiltrate the Prone encampment. Your first encounter with the Prone, and kind of your first introduction to the Ganglion Alliance, though you don't really know what the Ganglion are at this point. And you unlock squad tasks at the end. Not really much to Chapter 3 at all. I guess I'll put it in D. It's whatever. X Chapter 4 is your actual first encounter with the Ganglion. Because that's when, you go to Noctilum, you meet Lao in that chapter, who becomes a very important character. You go through Noctilum and you find the first Lipode. You also meet L, a great character. L is a phenomenal character in Xenoblade X. One of my personal favorites. You find the first piece of the Lifehold. It ends up getting destroyed. Introduced to Goetia and the real Ganglion. Things start ramping up, I would say, in Chapter 4, and you get introduced to some cool characters, and Noctilum is one of the best. It's probably my second favorite Xenoblade X continent, behind Sylvalum. But besides that, again, Xenoblade X main story is not why you play Xenoblade X. So me putting the Xenoblade X chapters low, the main story chapters low, shouldn't be a reflection on what I think about Xenoblade X as a whole. I think Prologue goes over too. I think those opening shots in the Prologue and hearing Theme X is just so good. I think this is a good ordering of C tier right now. But yeah, me putting the Xenoblade X chapter so low should not be an indication of what I feel about Xenoblade X overall. Xenoblade X main story is not the best part of Xenoblade X. It's not why you play Xenoblade X. You play Xenoblade X so you can do the side quests and experience the world and all that, battle things. Chapter 5. Chapter 5 is actually a good chapter. It's actually when the world building of Xenoblade X, at least main story-wise, starts to ramp up. Because it's when you discover the truth about Mimiazomes, and I believe that's the last chapter Raheen saw. So I think this is where I'll end my explanations for Xenoblade X chapters, and I'll just rank them from here on. But yeah, Chapter 5, go through Oblivia. You meet the Manon for the first time, who are cool. The mystery of why everyone is unable to understand each other, even though they're very different languages. we can play Xenoblade X to get the big numbers. That's right. That's right. That's a huge motivating factor behind Xenoblade X. And the fact that yeah, Chapter 5, I thought so. And the fact that the side characters of Xenoblade X are better than the main cast. So anyway, Chapter 5, I'm gonna put in B tier, because it is a pretty important chapter to the overall lore of Xenoblade X, learning the truth about the Mimiozones and really setting the stakes, building the huge stakes behind why Blade is so interested in getting the life hold. All that stuff is great, and also building like the suspense of will they get the life hold in time? You know, and the Oblivious area theme is wonderful. Yes, you're right. You know, building the suspense of will they get to the life hold in time? How will this ever get out? Will the secret of the Mimiozones ever get out to the public? That stuff is really good. And also meeting the Manon, you will learn about it's your first time learning about the Samarian. I think that's the first time learning about the Samarian Confederation. Federation of Samar. So which is important to the world building as well. So important chapter world building wise. Chapter 5. Alright, so from here on, I'm just going to rank these, and basically, Chapter 6, Chapter 6 was where I got hooked on Xenoblade X whenever I first played. You could get introduced to a really, really important figure, I guess, in the Xenoblade X world lore. So, I have to do Chapter 6 over Chapter 5 for B. Chapter 7, Chapter 7. Oh. Chapter 7's whatever. Here, I guess. Samarian. Yeah, S-A-M-A-A-R-I-N. I believe that's the first time. I believe there's a Manon. One of the Manon mentions the Federation of Samar, and that's the first thing you learn about. It's the huge galactic federation that spans like many like parts of the universe in Xenoblade X. So they're pretty important. You end up learning a lot more about them later on in the main story. But yeah. 8 is arguably the best chapter in Xenoblade X. I'm gonna say great. I think it's between 8 and 11 are both in A tier. They're the two best chapters. 8 wins off in like epicness and grand scale. 11 wins off in characters, like the emotional character moments. So, or wins out, I should say, not win off. I think 11 takes it for me. I think Chapter 11 is probably my favorite Xenoblade X chapter. It's a fairly short one, but it's got some really hard-hitting moments. It's also got Tatsu's only good moment in the entire game. Which, ironically, is part of one of the most emotional moments in the game overall, but it's Tatsu's only good moment he ever gets, is in Chapter 11. Chapter 9, you get introduced to a pretty important race of people. Also, first introduction to Sylvalum. Sylvalum's great. That's probably the best part of Chapter 9, I can say. It's like here. 10... Oh! Chapter 10. Okay, Chapter 10 is one of my favorite boss fights in the entire series. But other than that, not much story stuff. So I'm gonna put Chapter 10 like top of B tier for right now. But Chapter 10 has a pretty amazing boss fight. One of the coolest boss fights in the whole series by far. But story-wise, really, it's not. 12. I mean, shit goes down. You get introduced to the worst main villain, and the worst villain overall in the entire series. Probably my least favorite character in the entire Xeno series, honestly, which is the main villain of Xenoblade X. So that's a big letdown, although in the final fight can kind of suck because you can wreck your Skell and you can't get it back during the final fight. It's a point of no return, so you can't get it out. It's kind of bad boss design, but yeah, Chapter 12 is there's a good moment in Chapter 12 too. I think like top of C tier is good for Chapter 12. And then the ending is garbage. the infamous post-credit scene of Xenoblade X is garbage. That's probably going to be our only garbage if I had to guess for Xenoblade X. Okay, so now we're done with Xenoblade X. Now we can actually get into things that our chat actually knows about. But this would be my ranking of the Xenoblade X chapters. And we're starting with Xenoblade 1. And I guess, I'm not sure that it'll matter, but I'm ranking these off of Definitive Edition, specifically not Xenoblade 1. But, yeah. Now we get to things that, Raheen, you can actually contribute to. Contribute to the discussion and everything. We desperately need an X2, oh my god. Watch this ending and you'll see exactly why everyone's demanding for an X2. Holy shit. Like, it's terrible. It's so bad. God. They freaking left us on the biggest cliffhanger they could possibly leave us on. And, nope. We've heard nothing more about it for almost 9 freaking years. You know, this December will have been 9 years since Xenoblade X released? Holy crap, I'm old. Anyway. I remember getting excited for Xenoblade X. I remember getting it for Christmas. I was just a lowly middle schooler. It's hard to believe. I remember a time when Xenoblade X wasn't there, when the Xenoblade series was just Xenoblade 1. I remember that time. Oh man. Starting Xenoblade 1 too. That's Shulk and Fiora. This is a great song. Alright. Xenoblade 1 Prologue. I think the Xenoblade 1 Prologue's brilliant. I think it does such a great job. Oh my god, the music is phenomenal. Starts off just introducing you to just the grand scale of the world. Shulk telling the story, the backstory behind the Bionis and Mechonis fighting. It gets you right into this huge battle. It starts the stakes are really high, the action's intense. You get introduced to Dunban, who's just the coolest character ever. You got the seeds are planted with Mumkar, and you know you'll see him again later. The mysteries surrounds the Monado, and then there's that final shot when Dunban's just rushing headfirst into the Mechon horde. And the camera pans out and it shows you just the scale of the world that you're about to be seeing. It was unbelievable on the Wii. It's still unbelievable now. That says a lot about the Xenoblade 1 Prologue and how good a job it does at setting the tone. The beginning parts of Xenoblade 1 are so fucking underrated. Like, of all the games, I think Xenoblade 1 is the best beginning of all 3 of them. My opinion. I think it starts the strongest. Between the prologue, and we'll talk about these two, but prologue is a big part of that. It's only like 15 minutes long, so I can't put it too high, but man, those 15 minutes are packed. They have the best music, the most intense action, the most like just planting stuff for later, really getting you into the game and showing you what you're about to experience, giving you a taste of the world. It's so good. I'm gonna have to put Xenoblade 1 Prologue here. I think this part of B tier is fine, because again, it's only 15 minutes. Hardly even 15 minutes. And the fight is a tutorial fight that, for stuff that you, like, for using the Monado, which you don't actually even get to use again until like a couple more hours in, once Shulk gets the Monado. So, I can't put it too high, but it's here. It's getting there. Okay, Xenoblade 1, Chapter 1. This is from 1 year later, like, from fighting Shulk, from being introduced to Shulk in the Mechon Wreckage Site, to, through, like, Tephra Cave and Magma Ruins and all that stuff. It ends with Shulk, Fiora, and Rein fighting off the ancient machines in the Magma Ruins, or the Cylinder Hangar, and then they hear the siren go off, and then the chapter ends. So that's Chapter 1. It's really just getting you introduced to the main characters, getting you introduced to Colony 9. I think Colony 9, by the way, is the best. I'm biased in saying all this. Whenever I say like anything is the best, you obviously, it's my opinion. I just kind of say it as fact. I'm sorry, I say it as fact. But my opinion, all this is my opinion. Please don't take Please don't get offended by me saying that something is the best. It's all my opinion. Anyway, the whole list is my opinion. I'll take some input from the chat, but I think the whole list is my opinion, ultimately. Xenoblade 1... So, Colony 9 is the best RPG hometown area in any RPG. It's the perfect size. It's actually big. For an opening area, Colony 9 feels very, very big, but it never feels overwhelming. Like, it has that feeling of, like... I just remember you can go into, like, when you're playing a Shulk alone, you go past, like, the central plaza, and you can see off in the distance, like, Agora Shore, and all those little shorelines that are at, like, the very edge of the colony. Like, all that stuff you can actually just jump over the gate and swim to. It's big. Colony 9 is huge, but it also just has that great hometown feel. The music is great, both inside the town and outside the town. There's a ton of NPCs to talk to. The quests in Colony 9 overall are so great. But anyway, as far as Chapter 1 itself, definitely build some intrigue about the Monado, and about Dunban. I think it does a good job introducing Shulk, and his dynamic with Ryan and Fiora is good. Again, gives you kind of... Colony 9 is a playground, kind of, to the Gem Man stands there, right? Yeah. It gives you Colony 9 as kind of a playground to just do whatever in. There's a ton of quests for you to do. They give you tons of monsters to fight. They give you unique monsters to fight if you want to go challenge yourself. It's a really great opening area for a game. It's really a playground. I'm saying playground. It really kind of is a playground just to do whatever you want in, until you're ready to go off to Tephra Cave, which is kind of a more dungeony area. So it has the good contrast. I think Chapter 1, honestly, I think get in there. I think Colony 9 is just such a great opening area. I have to put it here. Maybe here. Because I'm thinking about some things that come later. Some of the story moments that come later. And I may end up putting those above. I think top of C tier is pretty good for Chapter 1. Yeah, that's the point. Xenoblade 1 does such a great job of giving you that option. You stray too far off the beaten path, you encounter a unique monster, or you can go off to Agora Shore and encounter like level 30 Armus. But they give you that option. That's the great thing about Xenoblade 1. Even, like level 70 Piranaxes, I think are along those shores too. So I think it's really good. It gives you room to challenge yourself and kind of shows you like what kind of a game this is gonna end up being. Dangerous stuff that lurks around every corner, as you'll see with Territorial Rothbard. Chapter 2 is Chapter 2 is S tier. Absolutely freaking S tier. When I talk about how you get a hook into a game, Xenoblade 1 Chapter 2 is like should be the gold standard for any story ever written for how to hook a player into a game. Chapter 2 is the Mechon attack on Colony 9, basically. It ends with Shulk and Ryan leaving. It's so good. Like, man, moment after moment, the way they set the intensity of the moment and they show you the horror of the Mechon, like running through the colony and snatching people's heads off. Pretty terrifying, but it sets that tone. Dunban coming in and saving the day whenever they're all trapped at the Central Plaza and says, "Sorry I kept you waiting, it's so badass." And then seeing him cripple, like the juxtaposition, really makes things feel urgent. So it makes Shulk picking up the Monado feel all that more just epic to it and all that more urgent to it. And then Fiora's death, the first time you hear her engage the enemy, the first time encountering Metalface, which Metalface is such a great villain. They do such a great job just setting Metalface up as a villain to be terrifying. They do a great job of giving you power and making you feel very empowered by having the Monado and making you feel like, yeah, I can do this. And then, like, right after that, humbling you with an enemy that you can't fight. with the Minato metal face. It's a great juxtaposition, and it shows you that to not get too like to not get too overzealous, because again, there will be dangers lurking around every turn, and you're not the strongest thing in this world. It's a good job of humbling you whenever that first encounter of Metal Face. It's a great boss fight. The cutscene is so emotional, and then Shulk talking to Ryan at Outlook Park and having the discussion with Dunban before he goes. All that stuff is just great. This perfect hook to a game. This is perfect. Xenoblade 1 Chapter 2 is just perfect. Alright, Chapter 3 is basically just Tephra Cave. It ends with the Arachno Queen. No, it ends after it ends with the cutscene of Shulk and Ryan seeing looking out at Kneecap Hill, looking out at the Makanis. So like the bulk of Chapter 3, now that I'm saying it that way, the bulk of Chapter 3 in Tephra Cave is pretty mid. Like it's whatever. There's some good character moments between Shulk and Ryan that I really like. That really, sets a good foundation for their friendship, and I think it's really good. But ultimately, Tephra Cave's just a dungeon area. It's a pretty linear dungeon area. You get introduced to kind of the mystery behind the visions. There's that one scene where Alva shows up in Shulk's dream, talks about the True Minato. That's the your first hint at the True Minato. I'll be right behind you, and we'll seize our destiny together. Oh man, I love Dunban. I love Dunban. Yeah, Chapter 3, there's some good stuff with the visions, good character moments between Shulk and Ryan, and the final cutscene of Chapter 3 is wonderful. It's another like great hooking moment where you just see again just how huge the world is. The prologue gave you a taste of how huge the world is with its like the shot that goes outward and the way that Shulk is explaining the Bionis and Mechonis at the very beginning and the way you see these huge titans. It gives you an idea of how big the world is, but Chapter 3 really gives you an idea of how big the world is. It's a gorgeous view, such a great moment. They play this song called, I think in the soundtrack it's called Majesty. One of my favorite songs in the game, actually, like a top 10 song for me. Because it just does such a great job of showing that grandiosity. Our enemy, Mechonis. Our enemy. Because like you as a player just explored all of Colony 9, or maybe not all of Colony 9, but you at least explored Colony 9, and that was a big area. And then you come out to the Kneecap Hill, and you're just humbled. Like, oh my god, I'm in for a way bigger adventure than I thought I was. Yeah. So Chapter 3, the end of Chapter 3 is great. The rest of it is okay. I think Chapter 3 goes under... it goes here. I think that's fine. And I may actually, now that I'm thinking about it with these Xenoblade X chapters, I may move these around. Chapter 12 goes up. Now that I'm starting to think about Xenoblade X Chapter 12, it goes up. There's actually a really good reveal in Chapter 12. It has a bad villain, but I may put Chapter 12 here. Thinking about Chapter 12 more, it may go up. Chapter 4 may actually go up too, because Noctilum's actually a great area. No, okay, I think that's fine. That's fine. This is a good ranking so far. Okay, Xenoblade 1 Chapter 4 is the introduction to Galar Plain, or first emerging onto Galar Plain, another great moment. After just exploring Tephra Cave, which is really confined and linear and kind of a dark and dingy cave, not the most memorable of areas at this point, although Tephra Cave does become a pretty memorable area after the Bionis moves and you get to see all the hidden stuff within Tephra Cave. That stuff is cool. But at the beginning of the game, you think not much of it. You think, it's just a dungeon area. And then you come out to Galar Plain, it's like the canyon opens before you and you hear the music like rushing behind you, and it's a great moment. Introduced to Juju, which, love him or hate him, he's Juju. That's all you can say. Introduced to Sharla. It ends with a really great moment. First time you find the level 81 monkey, that's right. First time you find Territorial Rothbard, another moment where you're humbled. Xenoblade 1 does such a great job at that, of just making it, the sense of scope in Xenoblade 1 is pretty unbelievable, especially when you consider it was done on the Wii. The number of times it just gives you it feels empowering, and then it humbles you by just how much bigger and more dangerous the game is than you realize. That's the beauty of a lot of the earlier parts of Xenoblade 2 or Xenoblade 1. Sorry. Yeah. In the midst of this big Gaur play, and you feel like you can just do anything, and then you get one-shotted by Territorial Outbar. It's a memorable moment. It's one that sticks with you. And Chapter 4 ends with a really great engage the enemy moment when Shulk unlocks Minato's speed against the Mechon in Windy Valley. And Juju's taken once again. That's a great cutscene. More of seeing the visions pay off, which I think is cool, and seeing Shulk start to learn how to give himself power through seeing the visions and learning to actually take control of his destiny. Good moment. Chapter 4, man. That's good, I think, for Chapter 4. I think top of B tier is good for Chapter 4. Xenoblade 1 Chapter 5. Xenoblade 1 Chapter 5 is the Ether Mine, and then it ends with the unfinished battle cutscene, Dunmen coming back. So the Ether Mine is incredibly mid. Probably one of my least favorite parts of Xenoblade 1 personally. It's not awful, it's just a linear dungeon area, and it doesn't have the cool stuff that Tephra Cave has where you can come back later and it opens up. It's literally just the middle of Aether Mine is just a missable area, the central pit. And you can never go back there because it gets destroyed. And then there's the Zord fight, which is kind of tricky on a first-time playthrough. Kind of annoying. You have to make good use of your chain attacks. I guess it's a good test for the player, but not much really exciting story stuff happens there. There is a great cutscene where you see Charlotte gain her determination. I swear I won't stop until I smash each and every one of you. That's a good scene. And seeing Shulk use his resourcefulness to save a Tharon is pretty cathartic. Again, seeing him learn to make use of his visions is good. But yeah, overall, the Ether Mine section is pretty just okay. And then the end of Chapter 5, just like the end of Chapter 3, the end of Chapter 5, wow! Wow, the end of Chapter 5 is one of the best parts in Xenoblade 1. The end of Chapter 5, Dunban and Dixon coming in, Metalface being reintroduced, and just like, you finally get to hear his voice, and you just learn to hate Metalface so much, but you love it, Metalface steals every single cutscene he's in. Every single cutscene he's in is just stolen. The show is stolen by Metalface. He's such a great villain. Such a hateable villain, but you love to see it too. My claws slid right through a soft flesh, like a hot knife through butter. My gosh. Unfinished battle coming in. All those were great moments. The Telethia coming in to save the day and really sparking that mystery. So, end of Chapter 5 is great. The majority of Chapter 5 is pretty mid. I think that rounds it out to... I would say it's right around where Chapter 3 is. Because Chapter 3 is also a linear dungeon that ends with a really cool moment. And then Chapter 5 is an even lamer linear dungeon that ends with an even better moment. So, I think that's fine for these two. Okay, and maybe I should be weighing the unfinished battle cutscene a little more and maybe putting it here. Because the unfinished battle moment is so good. It's such a rush, but the rest of the chapter is so... You're stuck with Shulk, Ryan, and Sharla throughout, and you're basically just using Shulk because you have to constantly use Enchant throughout all the battles because fighting Mechon at this point in the game is kind of annoying. The Ether Mine was a little too long, yeah, I agree with Raheen. Yeah, but the payoff is so good. The payoff for the unfinished battle cutscene is just so much worth it. Unfinished battle doesn't loop. That is true. I'm just talking about the cutscene overall. I do wish unfinished battle looped. Okay, I'll compromise. I'll put it absolute bottom of B tier. The end of the chapter absolutely carries. Alright, Chapter 6 is the Troll Marsh. This is when Xenoblade 1 became one of my favorite games of all time. when I first played, this is when Xenoblade 1 went from a game I was hooked on. Chapter 2 hooked the game, Chapter 2 hooked me. Chapter 6, Xenoblade 1 became something like really, really special. Central Marsh is extremely just magnificent. It's memorable, the music is great, it's kind of just blows you away. Like, it's a swamp area in a game, and usually swamp areas aren't too interesting, but the Xenoblade 1 swamp area is just so vibrant and colorful and mysterious, and it really gives that just imaginative wonder to the world, just further expanding on just how imaginative the world of the Bionis and Mechonis are. But, at the same time, not a lot of story stuff happens. It's just... he's still a tuna, that's right. It's just Dixon leading the party through Central Marsh. So, I can't put it too high. I'm at least going to put it above 5 and above the prologue, maybe? Chapter 6 was really important for me personally. I think I'll put it here. I think this is a solid spot for Chapter 6. Because it really did cement Xenoblade 1 as like, okay, this is about to be a really special experience. But in the grand scheme of things, not much story relevance. But Central Marsh is a phenomenal area. So I think it rounds out here. Chapter 7, this is Magna Forest. Another really memorable moment to me, seeing Great Magna Falls for the first time, crossing that bridge. Yeah, Central Marsh Night looks is really the highlight of Chapter 6. Chapter 7, Magna Forest, you get introduced to Best Girl, Melia. That's the highlight of the chapter. You get introduced to Ricky. Actually, you get introduced to a lot in Chapter 7. Chapter 7 starts from the party exiting into, or entering Magna Forest, and then ends with them leaving to Aerith Sea. So that's a pretty long stretch of time. You get introduced to Alvis, Melia, and Ricky, and generally just more mystery on the Bionis and Mechonis, which is really cool. Alvis's introduction is phenomenal. People don't talk about that enough. Alvis's introduction is so good. They build up the perfect amount of mystery around him and make him seem badass. Chapter 7 is pretty high. Getting close to the goal, that's right. Getting close to the head. Chapter 7 is pretty high. I think I'm gonna have to go bottom of A tier for Chapter 7. It's a really great chapter. Also, the fight against Vitelethia. Oh man, that's such a good fight. Thulk reassuring Melia that they can do it, to trust in the Monado, and Melia wondering how could he have that much trust in that sword, and showing the character's resourcefulness to Melia's idea to just make Vitelethia implode with too much ether. And, of course, engage the enemy. Any chapter with an engage the enemy scene is so good. Oh my god, engage the enemy is just... it's such a great song. So yeah, it's another engage the enemy moment that goes there. Cross-ray! Lost-ray! Yeah, Alvis is great. Chapter 7 is really good. Magna Forest is also just a great area. It's very big. And it has a lot to do, especially in Definitive Edition, where it doesn't have the weird poppin' problem that it had on the Wii. Also, Ryan has some funny moments in the later parts of the chapter. I'll say Brute Force wins again. Alright, done, Ben. Bite on this! Yeah. Anyway, Chapter 8. Chapter 8 is from the party's arrival in Aerith Sea to, I think, Melia's coronation. I think it's that length of time. Yeah. Also, I'm gonna, I'd also say 8 is an A tier as well. 8's great. Aerith Sea is huge, and it's another really, put your journey in perspective moment. Xenoblade 1 has a lot of those. It's really great. And it feels ethereal. That's a pun because ether, but Off topic, Greatsword Base, yeah. Yeah, they did. Greatsword Base, they did a great job of flipping the tone. That's my favorite moments in Xenoblade 3 as well. We'll get to that. Yeah, they make Aerith C seem so strange with all the the teleporters and all the strange technology. Alchemoth is huge, and they give it some great atmosphere. All the lore you get with the Hyentia and all the mystery you get surrounding the Bionite Order in Tyrea and Umea. More on Melia and her backstory. Anything involving Melia is great because Melia's character arc is just wonderfully done. And Chapter 8's really like the kind of all about Melia. One thing I will say is I do think the Hyentia Tomb is kind of a disappointing dungeon. It's almost too easy for a dungeon, but at least they nail the atmosphere there and the music there is really good. And all the mystery leading up to it about what exactly Tyrea and the Bionite Order are doing is really cool. You also get introduced to Callian in this chapter. I guess the rest of Melia's family, but Callian is one of them, and Callian's a great character. It's one of my favorite side characters in Xenoblade 1, so yeah, he's cool. I think Chapter 7's here. I think the Hyentia Tomb being a disappointing dungeon is probably the one thing that keeps it from being over Chapter 7, but it's here. The music is so good. Puts you in a trance. We're hearing Frontier Village right now. I probably should have made a playlist for this, and tried to put the music in order so it can align with what we're talking about. But yeah. This whole stream was kind of a spur of the moment thing, so that is what it is. Chapter 9, fucking S tier. Oh my god, Chapter 9 is so good. Chapter 9, easiest S tier of my life. Don't press the button! I think you'll find that we had to take the long way around because someone pressed a certain button. Great moment. Anyway, Chapter 9 is phenomenal. Chapter 9 is... oh my god! Y'all. I have to pause the music for just a second. Because Chapter 9 of Xenoblade 1 is so peak. I'm not gonna show all this, but
we must be outside
fucking
the tower.
Oh my god. Y'all.
Choice.
Not quite that.
Enemy and the power to defeat them.
Here we go. Y'all, this is so good.
Zanza. Mekon. It's not over. The people of Bionis will never let you triumph.
That's my goat! That's my fucking goat! Don't give the goat!
It's changing form!
Be careful! We cannot withstand such power!
That's him! He's him! He's my fucking goat! Anyway. Sorry. Just had to fanboy. What a moment. What a moment. You will know the pain and suffering you caused the Emperor and Fiora! And then actually getting the Fiora reveal, oh my god. Oh my gosh. It's peak. It's peak. It's peak, I'm afraid. Your Majesty, it's peak. Need I go on? Chapter 9's peak. The Fiora reveal. The goat is gonna bring shit to the table. Holy. Too good. Too good. Anyway. Chapter 10 is Valak Mountain. I guess I should play this again. Chapter 10 is Valak Mountain. And Ase Tower, and it ends with the fight against Mumkar. That one's really good. Again, all these are so good. Valak Mountain's my favorite area in the game, so this one's gonna have to be high. I think Chapter 10. The Mumcar reveal is so good. It's predictable, but Dunban and Mumcar going at it will never not be hype. And the start of the mystery with Ase Tower and Alvis explaining how Shulk's visions work, and citing Laplace's demon, a concept from physics, in order to explain how Shulk's visions work is so good. Here's good. That's solid. Pretty high. Chapter 11 is Sword Valley and Galahad Fortress. Another really good one. Oh my gosh, we're on a roll here. Valak Mountain. The fact that Valak Mountain just turns into that just mystical wonderland when it turns night is. There's nothing else like it. Honestly, in the entire Xenoblade series, there's nothing else like it. Yeah. The snow areas are always my favorites in basically all the Xenoblade games. Valak Mountain's my favorite area in Xenoblade 1. Either Tental or Letherian Archipelago are my favorite area in Xenoblade 2. And then Xenoblade, it's probably Erythea Sea, actually, Erythea Sea in Xenoblade 3, but I think Black Mountains from Future Redeemed is probably up there too. Anyway, Chapter 11 had an amazing moment. Shulk stopping Dunban's blade and their back and forth about what their real goal is there. What makes them any better if they're killing humans. It's a great change of perspective for Shulk, and you get to see him. It's a real pinnacle part of his development. And then it ends. Oh my gosh! By the way, the Galahad Fortress music doesn't get enough credit. It's a very underrated song. Among the songs in Xenoblade 1, I don't hear near enough people talking about how good the Galahad Fortress music is. It does such a great job of setting the epic, of the real, just the percussion does such a great job. It's the perfect enemy bass music. I'm gonna turn on my fan 1 sec. Get a sip of water too. You never saw the Mumcar reveal coming? Yeah, this is Lagarda Prison. I need to go refill my water. Give me 1 sec. I need to refill my water. Basically life or death because of how deep you are in enemy territory. And yeah, the music makes it feel like that. It's a great part of it. Yeah, Chapter 11 has some phenomenal moments. The destruction of Galahad Fortress, the way the stakes are set there, cements Egil as a really good villain too. It's the first time Tragic Decision plays. That's also true. When Shulk is trying to save Fiora. Yeah, Chapter 11 has got to be pretty high. Either high A, either like top of A or S tier. I think top of A. I'm leaning top of A. The one thing is, you know, at the like, I do think Sword Valley is actually a good area because it makes you think it's going to be like just this another linear dungeon area. But it's a lot larger than that, and I like that they made it larger. Is it your mom, your dad, or maybe that special someone? There's so many good moments in Chapter 11. But I don't know. I'm thinking of some other chapters I may put in S tier later, and I don't think Chapter 11 goes above either of these two. I think it's like the very tip top of A tier. Honestly, we're talking about Xenoblade music. I'm gonna pull up music that fits with the chapters we're talking about. So we're in Fallen Arm now.
Are you struggling in calculus? Having a hard time understanding?
Get the ads off. I don't pay for YouTube Premium. Get the ads off. Okay. So yeah, now we get to chapter 12. Also, great chapter. Basically, I'm just gonna be... The rest of this, you should have seen this coming already, but this is just me gushing about Xenoblade, which is a pastime I very much enjoy doing. So, chapter 12 is the Fallen Arm up to when they're about to leave for Mechonis. No, hang on. That's not right. It's... Chapter 11 ends with the destruction of Galahad Fortress. Chapter 12, I think, ends with Mikkel telling them that Egil is his son. And then it ends. So it's actually pretty short, with that being said. I think chapter 12... So it's really... Okay. Then it's really just Thulk getting Fiora back. And their kiss. And Ryan and Charla having a great moment together, and then Dunban and Ricky having a great... It's a lot of great character moments. Chapter 12 was a lot of really good character moments. And I think that the Fallen Arm is also just a good area. You don't get to explore much of it in Chapter 12, because you really just go to the Hidden Machina village and then talk to Mikkel. But there's some good mystery they build up with the Machina, and you definitely... At the end of Chapter 12, you definitely want to learn more about them and their history. They do the world building so well. I think Chapter 12... I don't know. Like, as far as the character moments alone, like, if it was just the Ricky and Dunban chapter, like, if it was just the Ricky and Dunban cutscene, it's S tier. But, like... I'm not saying the other ones bring it down either. It's just like comparing it to the rest of the chapters. It's very short. It's just character moments. But I'll be honest, the character moments are so good. It could go in A tier. I don't know. What? All right, I'll leave that one up to chat. And I know there's going to be some delay. Ricky Dumbass the best part. And there's going to be some delay. So, I'm going to go on and move on to chapter 13, but I'm going to leave it up to chat to decide where 12 goes. 13 is, I think, the rest of the Fallen Arm. Let me check on that, actually. Because the Xenoblade 1 chapters aren't always the easiest to parse out, because they don't actually tell you, unless you're on the save screen, what chapter you're on. Maybe this will give it to me? Chapter 13. Yeah, okay. Chapter 12 ends with Mikkel telling them Egil is his son. And then chapter 13 ends with them going to Mechonis Field. So chapter 13 is the rest of the Fallen Arm. Oh yeah, does a phenomenal job of showing Ricky isn't just comedy. I really think that Ricky's best moments come in, like, that's his best moment in the story. That and also his moment with Melia and the Bionis Interior is really good. But I think a lot of Ricky's best moments in the game overall are in Heart Hearts. I think there's a lot of people who just mistake Ricky for just comic relief. Or even people who get annoyed by him. But he's a lot more than that. His best moments are hidden away in all the character moments in Heart Hearts. I still will never forget one of my favorite Heart Hearts in the game was on the Fallen Arm, actually. It's at the Distant Fingertip. Shulk and Ricky. And Ricky offering to give his house so that Shulk and the others can come back and live with him. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh, what a moment. What a moment. Okay, so we'll leave 12 to chat. 13 is the rest of the Fallen Arm. So, Fallen Arm has great music. And I think overall it's a good area. I do find myself getting lost in there sometimes, though. Like, I feel like the Fallen Arm is kind of... I don't know, I have some problems with, like level design-wise with the Fallen Arm. They're not massive or anything, but, like, every time I get to that part of the playthrough, I always feel like there's parts of the Fallen Arm I should be able to get to, or should be able to access, but I just can't. I have to swim around to a different region, or be able to climb up from a different region. Once you unlock all the skip travel points, it's fine, obviously. But it feels like the Fallen Arm is a little more cumbersome than it should be to navigate. Besides that, though, story-wise, we get to see the Allied force start forming, and Dixon being kind of relaying that information back to Shulk. Shulk kind of strengthening his resolve and saying, like, you know what, I accomplished what I set out to do. Metalface is dead, and Fior's back alive, but now I have a new goal, you know? I think that's a good moment. Yeah, you gotta see the rest of the Heart Hearts, man. You gotta see the rest of the Heart Hearts. You gotta grind out the Affinity, see the rest of the Heart Hearts. I think Chapter 13, it's not one of the... I don't think it's one of the better ones. But it's good. It's fine. I think top of C tier. Yeah, that's solid. I think top of C tier is fine for Chapter 13. It's really just Fallen Arm, exploring the Fallen Arm and everything. Kind of now, yeah, you have the full party back together. You have the full party of 7 now, so just exploring the Fallen Arm. So now we got McConaughey's Field, which is a great song, by the way.
You're really making all of this by
extended
hand.
version.
Oh yeah, the avocados are hand mashed.
We're
The
gonna listen
chips
to a
are hand
Chipotle ad
tossed,
first.
and everything is made fresh.
You make it fresh every day.
Yes, every day. The Chipotle way is we make
Chapter
it fresh
14,
every day.
Sounds
I
delicious.
think, is McConaughey's Field
I
and
made a
Central
promise to
Factory,
my
but let me
daughter
check.
that I would get my college degree. I had 20 years of experience as an HR professional. I had reached
Oh my god,
the
Chapter 14 is the entire climb up McConaughey's.
UMGC removes every barrier.
It ends with
Everyone
Gatto's
treated me
sacrifice
like
in
a person
Agniratha.
with individual needs and met me where
That's
I was.
crazy.
I would not
Fit a lot into one chapter. Huh. Okay. Yeah, they fit a ton into one chapter. But it's like a lot of the most intense parts of the game. Plus, I love McConaughey's Field personally. I think it actually has great level design. They give you a lot of different paths to try to avoid Mechon, and they give you ways of being stealthy around them. And I've always loved pushing Mechon off a cliff. That's one of my favorite pastimes. And yeah, Chapter 14 is the entirety of the climb up Mechonus. It ends with Agniratha. It ends after Agniratha. Chapter 14 contains McConaughey's Field, Central Factory, Agniratha. And within that, the entire Gatto and Charla arc, the entire Gatto character arc, the really big encounter with Egil in Agniratha, Vinaya trying to convince him one more time, the lore drop, speaking of Agniratha, the lore drop, when the characters first get to Agniratha about the history of the world and how the great battle between the Bionis and Mechonus really went down, and all the lore drops they get about Zanza and who Zanza really is. All that's in Chapter 14, and then it ends with one of the most emotional deaths of the entire game. Holy shit. Contains a lot. Ooh. Yeah, and Central Factory is a good area. All the areas have great music. Oh my god, the Agniratha song. Oh my gosh. Hang on. One of my favorite songs in the game. One of my absolute favorite songs of the game. Come on now. Love this song. Y'all, it's taking me back. The juxtaposition of you finally arrive in the Mechonis capital, and you expect the Mechonis capital to just be this, like, you know, they built it up with Central Factory. It's like the real epic sound of Central Factory and all, like the real, like, grandiose feel of it all. And then you get to the Mechonis capital, you expect it to be this big thing, like really at the enemy base, but it just plays this real somber song, and you see the dead corpses of Telethia there. There's no people there. You could see it's now just a decayed city that's been kind of mechanized for war, almost, by Egil. There are machines there that are left from the people who were in the city all that time ago, who are still trying to execute rote tasks. It's pretty chilling. That's a moment I'll never forget from Xenoblade 1. I think chapter 14 goes here. I think it's an S tier chapter. The entire Mechonis is just something else, man. It's such a change of perspective. The more you go up Mechonis, and the more you realize, like, the more you learn the true history of the world and everything that's gone on. It's such a change in perspective, and it humbles you. Xenoblade 1 just does a great job of doing that, subverting your expectations and humbling you. Here, as the price goes by, a new instrument is added, then one by one. Hit the repeat. That's right. Get more instruments, and it builds, and then repeat. Amazing song. Amazing song. Okay. 15. This is Mechonis Core, right? But it stops just when Shulk is shot. Yeah. So it's some of the most intense parts of the game. The Egil reawakens the Mechonis and starts firing at the Bionis and, like, attacking full force. The allied force is in danger. You go to the Mechonis Core, there's that great cutscene where Junks is going into the Mechonis Core and you hear a mechanical rhythm. The boss fight is the best boss fight in the game. One of the best boss fights in the whole series. 15 is S. It's gotta be. Honestly, best chapter we've seen so far. 9 is so good, though. Oh man, 9 is so good. 15's a little 15 is short and it's kind of linear. There's not much to, like, explore about the areas. Okay. Maybe below 14, but definitely 16 is here. No, 16's here. As the piece goes, okay, yeah. As the piece goes, Brad, you're right. Okay, yeah. 15's here, 16 is S+. 14, I think, wins out over 15 as far as gameplay goes, and just the way it subverts your expectations, exploring the Mechonis. Honestly, it may even go here. This is actually a better spot for 14. Just exploring the Mechonis is humbling, man. Going to Agnirtha for the first time is just something else. 15's really intense, as far as, like, the intensity goes and the pacing of the story, and the more, like, the lore drops you get from Egil after the battle. But is it over... is it even over 2? Honestly, I'll put it here. I'm nothing against 15, of course. It's still an S, but it's just cutscenes, basically. It's linear, it's just cutscenes. But also, speaking of just cutscenes, 16 is just cutscenes. The difference with 16 is it's one of the best parts of the whole series. So 16 may, like, actually be just cutscenes. I think the only gameplay in Chapter 16 is just running away from Mechonis Core and fighting a Telethia on Junks. But honestly, I'm willing to eschew that, because Chapter 16 has the best parts of Xenoblade 1. It's the plot twist, and, like, pure peak. Pure peak. Bionis is reawakened, we get introduced to the true Zanza. Dixon stabs Shulk in the back! Mayneth awakens within Fiora and sacrifices herself. The reveal of Lorthea, I mean, that was expected, but like... oh my god! The fucking reveal of the High Entia being Telethia, them all transforming, oh my gosh! This is, yeah, 16 is the best tier. It's... There's no other good place for it to be. It's the best part of Xenoblade. 17 is long. Chapter 17 is literally just the rest of the game after that. It's everything from the party returning to Colony 6 to the end of the game, to like through the Zanza fight. Or actually, yeah, okay, so the epilogue here is literally just when Alvis shows Shulk the memory space. So, yeah, Chapter 17 goes from arriving back in Colony 6. Yeah, 15, 16, and 17 are where the real shit goes down. 17 begins with Shunk's landing in Colony 6 and ends with Shulk killing Zanza, so it's very long. It's the entire rest of the game. Gameplay-wise, it's a lot, because after you get back from Mechonis Core, the whole world changes. The Mechonis is no longer accessible, besides the Fallen Arm. Tephra Cave unlocks... new areas are unlocked in Tephra Cave. Alchemoth has changed. All High Entia have relocated. There's tons of new quests everywhere. So there's a lot of cool stuff. It's really cool going around seeing how the world changes. I think that's probably one of my favorite parts about the end game of Xenoblade 1. Just so much changes so quickly, and it's so cool, like, going to all the areas and seeing how they change. There's new quests everywhere, and they're really, really good. Shulk coming back is such a good scene. They play Prologue B for that scene, too. Shulk grabbing the Monado, jumping up and slicing through the Telethia. It's so hype. Dixon feeling fear gives more depth to Dixon's character. Yeah, there's also Bionis Interior, which is probably the worst part of the game. Aside from, like, that or Aethermine is probably the worst part of the game. But, you know, let's do The End Lies Ahead. It's kind of a hype song, but, you know, it still works. Oh, fuck, these fucking hats.
We get how uncertain the future is.
Yeah. Inclusive Bionis Interior, not a great part. Honestly, just a pretty sucky dungeon overall, and the worst boss fight in the series. Well, I won't say that. Worst boss fight in the game, definitely. Well, maybe not worst boss fight in the series. Shulk is the GOAT. You already know Shulk is the GOAT. Hold on. Wait. No, Shulk is the fucking GOAT. Y'all. Y'all.
The future is ours to shape, Dixon.
Okay, they have them in
Always.
When will you
shirtless,
learn
but it's
you
fine.
have no
It's fine.
future?
It's fine.
Face it.
Y'all.
Your destiny is to die here.
They're back against the wall, in a corner.
What? Shoot!
Thank goodness you're here!
Damn kid! So you're still alive! Attack! Destroy them! Ah! What?
Man is the GOAT. Man is the GOAT. Greatest protagonist of all time. Yeah. Anyway, Chapter 17, Bionis Interior. You got no problems with Interior. Okay. Hot take. I mean, it's just an annoying area for me. I feel like there's kind of a difficulty spike with the enemies. the paths are very narrow and they're pretty labyrinthine, and the Lorithia fight sucks. It's awful. If you do the quest, like most of that's from my first time through, but it kind of just scarred me on my first time through, so it's kind of just always been that way. I guess if you do the quests beforehand, if you're like appropriately leveled, I guess it's not that bad. But personally, I put him the new armor from that point. Yeah. I guess Bionis Interior is not that bad if you're like appropriately leveled and you kind of know what you're doing, but on a first time through it, it's not great. Lorithia fights quite annoying. But Prison Island's a great final area. Prison Island is a great final dungeon. The End Lies Ahead is like the best final dungeon song in any video game. I don't want to hear it. The best final level song in any video game, The End Lies Ahead. It's either that or Bowser's Galaxy Generator from Super Mario Galaxy 2. One of those two. So good. And the way the definitive edition adds the flute too is great. The fight with Dixon is epic. The final boss fight with Zanza is great. So it ends on a high note, obviously. Bionis Interior is not great, although the end of Bionis Interior is also really good. That's a really damn emotional moment. Melia gaining to talk to Callian again, and then Ricky reassuring her and saying that he hears him too. That's a great moment. Alright, 17. I love the flute here. It's so good. 17 I'll put here. I think that's fair. For everything that 17 offers, I think it's fair. And the epilogue is just Alvis showing Shulk the memory space and getting to see the new world. Not a whole lot. I'll be honest, of the main trilogy, I think Xenoblade 1 probably has the most, it's a good ending. I'd say it's just good. Xenoblade 2 has a great ending. Xenoblade 3 has a phenomenal ending. And then Future Redeemed is just peak. I think Xenoblade 1 just has a good ending. It gets a lot of the questions around what happens to Melia afterward. Again, showing Ricky's so much more in the comic relief. So true. A lot of the questions surrounding what Melia would do and what would happen to the Hyentia are rectified in Future Connected, but I think the actual ending of Xenoblade 1 is good. And it makes a lot more sense, especially now given the context we know about Klaus from Xenoblade 2. So I would say the ending on its own, D tier. That may be a hot take. I think Beyond the Sky is a good song. I think, it's cathartic seeing everyone so happy in the end. But at the end of the day, it's good. I wish the game actually explained how Fiora got her body back, and didn't just leave that to the Monado archives. And again, everything Alvis shows with Shulk and with Klaus and how the world came together makes a lot more sense after Xenoblade 2. But on its own, good. What was 13? 13 was oh, the rest of the Fallen. Yeah, okay, it's good. Yeah, it's good. Okay, did we come to a consensus on 12? I'm thinking 12 is at top of B. It's just character moments and not much else, but it's really, really good character moments. So I think top of B is fine. And then there's Future Connected. Future Connected is the last bit we have for Xenoblade 1. So Future Connected is really just its own whole side game. Although it's not near as big as Torna or Future Redeemed. But, it's fine. I have one really, really big problem with Future Connected, and that is the battle system. The changes they made to the Future Connected, I would dare say its battle system is kind of not good. like, I like the Xenoblade 1. I say 12 is bottom half of A. Okay, I'll say that. Yep. I'll go ahead and say bottom of A. I was kind of starting to think that too. Future Connected. So, I like the battle system of Xenoblade 1. Let's play Bionic Shoulder. I like the battle system of Xenoblade 1. There's a lot of people who say it's kind of mid compared to the others. This was play Bionic Shoulder.
Little Caesars hot ready slices and sticks is only $6.99. Walk in and walk out between 4 and 8 p.m. Pizza.
Building your online business? Go to Wix.com.
I like Xenoblade 1's battle system. Base game Xenoblade 1's battle system is good. It's got enough to it to stay engaging the entire time. But nearly everything that makes Xenoblade 1's battle system interesting, they removed for Future Connected. And it made it so that, like, one of the best parts about any of the Xenoblade games is being able, and honestly Xeno as a whole, because Xenosaga has some of these tendencies too, is breaking the system wide open and making yourself overpowered. The catharsis after beating a really, really high-level enemy, really underleveled. That's what makes the Xeno games really, really good. Nearly every Xeno game has some way to do that. Xenoblade 1 has a really weird system where they will heavily buff a enemy's agility if their level is 5 levels higher than yours, which is kind of stupid, and I'm really glad they got rid of that, because it discouraged you from taking on high-level enemies and being able to challenge yourself like that. It wasn't terrible, and there are ways to overcome it. It just made agility way too important of a stat. But it did make things... It was more challenging in Xenoblade 1 compared to say, 2X or 3 to challenge high-level enemies really early. And Future Connected didn't do anything to help that. Because the tools you did have in Xenoblade 1, in base game Xenoblade 1, to be able to challenge high-level enemies early were visions and chain attacks. And what are the two things that Future Connected removes? Visions and chain attacks. Yes, they have the Pawn Specters. It's not a proper replacement for chain attacks. You can't do near as much damage, there's not as much potential for damage. You can't topple lock. You can't do any of the cool stuff you could do in base game Xenoblade 1, you can't do in Future Connected. So the fun of challenging high-level enemies isn't there in this game. There's a lot of luck involved in challenging high-level enemies in Future Connected. It's not great. I'm not a big fan of the Future Connected battle system. I think it was cool. Like, I think Melia is probably my favorite character to play as in Xenoblade 1. I think her whole Ether system is really cool. Once you get the hang of it, at least. It's really cool. I like that she came back. I like that they made Nene and Kino into, like, Ryan and Sharla, even though that made it so that I never used Kino. But Nene was at least fun to play with Ryan. It's just, the battle system's a big thing for me. It just was not as fun, Future Connected, as base game Xenoblade 1. As far as, like, rest of the gameplay goes, like, the quests were good. Bionic Shoulder was a big area. And story-wise, it was good. I think Future Connected overall, what I have to say, it's good. So I'd say, personally, bottom of B tier. Maybe that's a hot take. I don't know. But personally, bottom of B tier. Future Connected is pretty good. It doesn't do anything too spectacular with the story, but it also didn't really need to. I like the closure it gives to Melia's story. I like the closure it gives to Tyrea's story, especially. I think her story was pretty underrated in base game Xenoblade 1. I like the closure they give. It introduces some fine characters, I guess. I think Maxis has kind of a cool little character arc. They never explained the fog until Xenoblade 3. I guess it built up mystery for that, but until then, it was just kind of meh. The Fog King is uninteresting as an antagonist, and I guess meant to be, whatever. The only other interesting antagonist in Future Connected was Gaelgar, and he sucked. He's one of my least favorite characters in the entire series. He's awful. There is Thad. Thad's a good... Thad alone's a good character. Random NPC in Grandel named Thad, who is a simp for Tyrea. I think his story was kind of funny. I think he was funny. Nene and Kino are good. I think they're good characters. I will say, one of the best parts of Future Connected is all of the, like, post-game development they give to Ricky. Like, everything you hear about Ricky and all of his exploits from Nene and Kino is actually so funny. It's like one of, not the best part of Future Connected to me personally. It gave more development to Ricky after the fact. Because you get to hear about how, like, awesome of a dad he is, and how he told everybody about his stories, and how he was celebrated as a hero. It's really funny. It's actually really, really great. Made you appreciate Ricky a lot more. In addition to everything in main game Xenoblade 1. But yeah, Bite on Shoulder is good. Just don't like the battle system. And the story is okay. Alright. I probably spent more time than I needed to on Xenoblade 1. I have a lot to say about the Xenoblade 1 chapters, and there's a lot of them. There's more of them than there are any of the others because they're shorter. But that's Xenoblade 1. I'm going to go a little quicker through these. Just so that I have... I don't want to go until, like, midnight, you know? Okay. So far, any qualms with the list? Any placements we want to hash out here? Any disagreements? If no, then we'll continue. Let's go, we'll just play some Xenoblade 2 Relax. So that we're not having to change it over and over. Sure.
Today I'm at Yale asking students for their best study strategy for the new semester.
Active recall. I really like to make.
Ooh, Ancient Vessel. Great song. Okay. So, starting with the Xenoblade 2 chapters. Chapter 1, Xenoblade 2. Try with it? Alright. Chapter 1, Xenoblade 2. I think, unlike Xenoblade 1, I think Xenoblade 1 starts out very, very strong and stays pretty consistently strong throughout the whole thing. There are no bad chapters in Xenoblade 1. It stays pretty consistently strong. It has a great hook at the beginning. It stays pretty consistently strong. Builds. Climax. Kind of rough around Bionis Interior, but then builds right back up at the very end. I think... So, Xenoblade 1 starts strong and is consistent, is what I'm trying to say. Xenoblade 2, on the other hand, starts, in my opinion, pretty slow. And that's going to be a commonality you'll see as I'm ranking the Xenoblade 2 chapters. It starts pretty slow, but the ending chapters of Xenoblade 2, I think, have even higher highs than the Xenoblade 1 chapters do. So, that's going to be my general guiding opinion on the Xenoblade 2 chapters. Chapter 1 is Argentum and the Ancient Vessel meeting Pyra, and then the fight with Malos at the end, escaping the Ancient Vessel, escaping Torna. It's good. I think, now, the tutorials are awful. That's getting that right out of the gate. I think the Xenoblade 2 tutorials are probably the worst thing in any of the Xenoblade games. Like, my single biggest issue with the entire Xenoblade series is the Xenoblade 2 tutorials. They're really bad. So much so that every time someone new plays Xenoblade 2, I always get worried because I feel like I need to explain the game to them better than the game explains itself. So, Argentum as a tutorial area? No, it's awful. They do a terrible job, and they come up at random times, and they're pretty intrusive, and they don't tell you anything about how to actually properly use pouch items, and what the good ones are, or any of that. But Argentum is just as an area, it's fine. I think the members of Torna are have good designs, I would say. You know, you could say Jin is like classic Tetsuya Nomura, but I actually kind of like that design. I think the character moments between Rex and Nia, the one character moment between Rex and Nia on the ship heading toward the excavation site, or the salvaging site where they're going to salvage the ancient vessel. I think that was a good character moment. Kind of sets the groundwork for their relationship. Rex meeting Pyra. I think people meme about the like place your hand on my chest line, but honestly, I like it because I think it establishes a good like Rex kind of has a thing for Pyra pretty early on, which I kind of like. So I'm not going to complain about that too much. And then I do think Chapter 1 does end strong. The end of Chapter 1 is very good. They play counterattack, and it's really high intensity, and the animation, you can see there's a big animation improvement from Xenoblade 1 to Xenoblade 2, and they really show that off pretty early with the ending fight against Malos. Although, again, the actual gameplay fight against Malos is really bad because they interrupt you with, like, a ton of different tutorials on a ton of different things that are none of which are explained well. Like, I think they explain blade arts, blade combos, and level 4 blade specials all at the same time in the same battle, and it's really bad and really intrusive on the gameplay. But, cutscene-wise, story-wise, really good. It's really high intensity, and I like that. The animation's great, and they really brings back the intensity of the Xenoblade fight scenes that I had been missing after I played Xenoblade 1. One of my favorite parts of Xenoblade 1 was all the high intensity like cutscene fight scenes. And I think Xenoblade 2 showed really early on that they were doing a really good effort to try to bring those back, make the story really intense. But all the dialogue at the end of Chapter 1 foreshadows so much. Right, that's true. There's good foreshadowing. So I think overall, Xenoblade 2 Chapter 1, terrible tutorials, Argentum's decent, and the ending's really good. I think it's around where Future Connected is. Maybe here. Bottom of B. Carried a lot by the ending. I think these, like, 5 and Xenoblade 1 Chapter 5 and Xenoblade 2 Chapter 1 are both kind of carried by their endings. Honestly, maybe here. Now I'm thinking about that. And maybe because of that, maybe here. I may just have Chapter 5 here. Because the Ether Mine really is a dominant part of that chapter. As great as the unfinished battle stuff is, Ether Mine really is a dominant part of that chapter. So, I think this is good. Chapter 2. Chapter 2... I'm sorry. It's mid. I'm sorry, y'all. Xenoblade 2 Chapter 2 is mid. It's slow. Like, they end off Chapter 1 so well. And they have such, like, high-intensity stuff. And the pacing is great, and you really want to see, like, see the story become more intense. And then the story just slows down so much in Chapter 2. I can't with Chapter... I'm sorry. It's not bad. There are good moments. I think the final scene, Rex and Pyra around the campfire, and Nia giving her her peace sign, that's a great scene. That's a great way to end the chapter. But there's a lot of other parts of Chapter 2 that are not good. The intro... Raheen knows this. I really don't like the introduction of Poppy. I don't like how they introduce her as a lolly character, like, that's kind of sexualized in a weird, kind of disturbing way. Tora, it doesn't help Tora's case either. Tora is kind of introduced as being weird and not very likable at first to most players. I end up liking both Tora and Poppy in the end, but their introductions, there's kind of a lot. There's quite a few characters in Xenoblade 2 that really have not great introductions. Tora and Poppy are examples of those. Mithra, oh my god, we'll see. I'll talk about Mithra stuff later on, but Tora and Poppy have some really not great introductions. It makes them seem weird, and there's real weird sexual undertones with the, like, Tora's wardrobe of dresses that are it's really stupid. They introduced Dougal as a protagonist who never comes up again and is really annoying. The best part, I will say, besides the ending scene, the best part of Chapter 2 is freaking Padraig and the Ardanian soldiers. Holy crap, they're so good. Honestly, the best meme line to come out of the entire Xenoblade series are the Xenoblade 2 Ardanian soldiers. Going through the Ardanian ship and hearing them say, "Don't forget me, think you can take..." They have to, like, there's so much energy in their voice acting, and there's no need for them to be, but they're so good. They put so much energy into their voice acting, but they didn't really have any need for them to be. Yeah, however, after being the last boss of Chapter 2 is when the player gets the chance to move on to the real meat. Yeah, I'll talk about Chapter 3. But, yeah, besides Padraig being really funny, and the last scene, it's mid. Also, speaking of the last boss of Chapter 2, Raheen, I'm not a fan of the Morag fight. I really don't like how the whole water tank thing just kind of comes out of nowhere. Like, it kind of feels like they pulled a solution out of their ass, and Rex and the others got away unscathed with kind of an undeserved win. I don't know. I'm not the biggest fan of it. I like Morag a lot as a character, but not the best introduction era. Okay. Yes, Chapter 2's strongest part is the memes, 100%. Also, Padraig's, "This is an Ethernet!" Yeah, best parts of the memes. Nia ripping up her wanted poster. Yeah. The Chapter 2 has some funny moments, but also some really cringily unfunny moments, like with Tora and Poppy, so. Yep. Chapter 3, Uriah, Vandam, introduction to Mithra, like the battle introduction to Mithra, not the bad introduction to Mithra. Tons of cool stuff. Uriah being a phenomenal area. Honestly, S. Chapter 3 is really, really good. Chapter 3 almost makes up for the slow beginnings. Because Chapter 3 on its own has a pretty slow beginning, because you get to Umon's shipyard, and then you have to backtrack and collect a bunch of resources to be able to move on. That's not that great, but once you actually get to Uriah is beautiful, it's huge, it's such a vibrant area, it encapsulates Xenoblade so well. Music is great. Vandam is a phenomenal character. Chapter 3 is where stuff gets interesting, I do agree with that. It's where a lot of the good world building comes in. Although I personally, my first time through, I wasn't like hooked on the game until Chapter 5, but Chapter 3 is definitely interesting. Yeah, Fontamima I think is actually a really good city too. I've always liked the flying buttresses on all the houses in Fontamima. That's just a little thing, but I like Fontamima. The design of Fontamima is good. Yeah, Vandam's a great character. Vandam is like the perfect mentor that early on for Rex, and I love their dynamic, and I love everything that Vandam teaches him and how he takes that and develops from it going forward. The shipyard is filler. Yeah. Not a big fan of how you have to backtrack for resources there. I was going to say one other thing. I'm starting to get a little tired. I'm going to say one other thing about Chapter 3. Oh, the ending is great. I like the boss fight at the end. They go from like appropriately really hard against Akos and Malos. Like that fight is very hard for gameplay wise, but it's supposed to be hard, so I like that. And then they juxtapose that immediately with Mithra, and they give you this big power up basically, and it really does feel empowering. I like that. And Mithra's reveal is great. Counterattack comes in, drifting soul plays for the first time, and you get to see some of the first bits of Nia, foreshadowing when Vandam dies. There's the Blushy Crushy Heart to Heart, which I don't know if I'm not really going to count that against Chapter 3, but not one of my favorites. That's like the one. That's like my one little point. If I had to have any against like the Uriah section of Chapter 3, would be that. Anyway, Chapter 3 is S tier still. A lot of the best parts of early game Xenoblade 2, and Vandom is such a great character, and he makes such an impact on the character, on the player. And the ending is really intense. Again, I think in general, Xenoblade 2 is less consistent than 1. You have to live. You have to go to Elysium. You have to make it. You have to make it to Elysium. Don't get cocky, you little shit. Yeah, Malice and Knuckles is hell, but they're nothing compared to Pachoka and Mikhail. That's right. All right. So Chapter 3 is S tier. It's great. I think if only honestly, I didn't even make enough of a big deal about Uriah. Uriah is such a good area. It's a great area. All right, now we get to Chapter 4. Chapter 4. Chapter 4, Chapter 4, Chapter 4. That's what I'm saying. I think we all know the problems with Chapter 4. I don't really think I have to spell them out for people. I think I think it has two major redeeming factors, and that is the Zeke encounter in Moradane, and Moradane in general as an area I think is pretty fun. The music's great. The Moradane music is wonderful, but everything else, it's not it. Not it, pal. I like the idea of giving Tora more backstory. I like the idea of making the Napon more prominent in the story, and they definitely do a pretty good job of that. I think they do a better job of it later in Chapter 6 when Bana comes back into the picture. But I like the idea of it. I think Bana and Mui Mui's interactions are pretty funny. The Giga Rosa fight is ridiculous, and I kind of like that. It has a very over-the-top aesthetic that I like. I think Morag's a good character, and I like how you do eventually get to have her in her party. I think her coming into the fight against Pachoka and Mikhail is badass. But man, there are so many problems with Chapter 4. There's the Mithra bed scene, which is so bad. Like, I can't even describe to you. Oh my god. You want to talk about terrible character introductions? Mithra's character introduction in Chapter 3 was so good. Was so fucking good. Making the character seem empowered, turning the whole battle around, playing counterattack, giving the player a mid-battle buff. Like, Mithra is stronger when she shows up in Chapter 3 than she ever can be in the main game, because they wanted the player to feel empowered, and yet they didn't feel it was a need to give Morag the same buff in Chapter 4 for some reason. So you just go into the Pachoka and Mikhail fight just completely underpowered, and you try to use Morag and she sucks, because you haven't equipped her with anything, yet the game hasn't given you the chance to equip her with anything. You have to lose purposefully to be able to equip Morag and make her ready for the battle. It's bad. Not to mention Pachoka and Mikhail on their own are just annoying as hell to fight. But like, with Mithra, they introduced her so well, and she was so badass, and so empowering and great, and the foreshadowing in the play in Thoughts of Maimo was so good. And then they bring it down so low, and that's like, now for so many players, what sticks out in their mind when they think of Mithra. And it's not great, because I have to try to convince people that Mithra is actually a really, really good character. One of my favorite characters, actually. But that's just, that scene sticks out in so many players' minds. Look, I am in the belief that the hot spring cutscene does a good job with distracting you from it. Yes, okay. I will defend the hot spring scene. I will defend the hot spring scene. That's actually really, really good foreshadowing. And it does a good job of distracting you from that. it does a good job of downplaying what the foreshadowing is to a point where you would only notice it once you replayed, which is a thing that all the Xenoblade games do well. It adds so much replayability to the game whenever you can go back to a cutscene and it has whole new meaning. But yeah, that cutscene's good. That cutscene is well written because it does that. But the pet scene is not at all. And Dromark and I think Dromark and Deserta are kind of funny in those scenes. Blood meat kettle or whatever, but like they're also whatever. They're just Dromark and Deserta. There's a whole filler arc with getting Rock back from the kids, which is really bad. Their whole reasoning for having to go to Moradin in the first place is really stupid. Like, it's not even that they have to, like, meet with the Emperor to go to Indal. They could have just taken the fucking ship to Indal. Like, I know they have to go through the Letherian Archipelago, but, like, they could have just taken the ship they got from the Argentum Trade Guild. It's not like it was a bad ship like the one Uman gave them. Like, they could have just taken the ship that they got from the Argentum Trade Guild through Letheria, skip Morardain, and then go to Indal. I get it. The game wanted you to go to Morardain because it would have been disappointing otherwise, because the game had talked about Morardain before while you were in Gormott and not done anything with it. Okay, fine. Give them a reason to go to Morardain later on in the story. Having them go to Morardain here just seems irrelevant and stupid, and just adding filler. The whole thing just seems like filler stuff. Not a big fan of it. Also, the factory is terrible. The factory is one of the worst dungeons in the whole series. Alright, enough about that. Chapter 5 is really, really good. Chapter 5 is actually excellent. I think when I first played Xenoblade 2, I think I would have put Chapter 5 over 3, but 3 is better upon replay, I think. Especially getting to see all the Vandom stuff again. 5 is still amazing. Chapter 5 is really when the story picks up. 1 through 4 is shaky. 1 ends well, but has some bad tutorials. 2 and 4 are really slow. 4 is just bad. Except for a couple moments. This is the only reason I don't put it in garbage is because of Zeke, and there are some good moments. And ideas, too. Like, generally good ideas. But 5 is when the game starts to become more consistently good. Xenoblade 1 is consistently great. Xenoblade 2 has higher highs, but lower lows. That's just generally how I think about the two games. Chapter 5, the Letheria section is so good. Letherian Archipelago is tied for the best area in the game, in my opinion. Just walking through that area is great. There is kind of a difficulty spike, which I think is a little weird. Like, no matter which of the routes you take through Letheria, the enemies feel stronger than they should be. But it's not that bad. It's better on repeat playthroughs once you actually understand the combat and you know how to take on high level enemies earlier on. You know about fusion combos and how to take better advantage of the game's battle system. It's better, but on a first time playthrough, I can see there being quite the difficulty spike. It's kind of unexpected, especially for just an area that you can just kind of peacefully walk through, or it seems like you can just kind of peacefully walk through. And man, Rex and Pyra going to the graveyard with Rex's parents, it's so good. It's so good. There's so many good character moments. Xenoblade 2 does a better job with its character moments than Xenoblade 1 does. I love Xenoblade 1's cast, but Xenoblade 2's character moments are just really, really good. It has a lot more of them, and puts them a lot more front and center in the story. And I think the Fonset Village scenes are really good at that too. Pyra's self-doubt, and Corrin trying to like comfort her. The setup with Brigid later is great. Finally, Zeke joins the party. That's a great one. And you actually get to like take Zeke seriously. I like the juxtaposition there too, of like Zeke actually being really, really good. I love Morag trying to hide her face, or Brigid trying to hide Morag's face. Whenever Zeke is like showing off, or trying to keep it coming. And Zeke falls again, of course. Well, everyone has bad days, right? Why me? We're actually hearing the Indal theme right now. Indal is not the most interesting area. It has a decent atmosphere, but it's not the most interesting area overall. It doesn't have quite the interest. Like Alchemoth at least had some. It was big and had some really cool quests. Indal doesn't. It's all right. Bridget and Pyra have a great conversation in the inn about blade memory that I think is really cool. And then, yeah, everything at the end of Chapter 5 is really intense. Like, everything in Temperantia, the war starting to break out. I do wish they elaborated more on Senator Roderick, and they do in the side quests. There's a whole Briannac and Lindworm side quest chain that you can do to find the anti-imperial rebels, and it starts to elaborate more on the real Warhawk part of the Senate in Mor Ardain. But you know, so I guess I don't hold that against Chapter 5. But yeah, the end of Chapter 5 is really intense. It's the reveal that Jin is the Flesh Eater, and yeah, Indal coming in to save the day, I guess. Rule 1 when you get Zeke, throw him off a cliff. Always. Always. Yeah, Chapter 5 is great. The story starts to ramp up in intensity, definitely closer to the end. It has some great character moments in Letheria. Letheria is a great area overall. I think it goes here. Maybe here, but I think I'm settled with here. 6. So 6 is mainly Tantal. It begins with you can argue it's a little filler arc. I think it's okay. I think it's better than these filler arcs. But there's the whole poisoning scheme where they think that I think it's kind of funny. I do think it's better than the Chapter 4 filler arcs. It's just Bana trying to ruin the feast at the meeting of the nations. I think it's a little endearing. There's some charm to it. I like the Tyrkans. I think Bana is better in this chapter than in this chapter, and also it's necessary for foreshadowing Nia, and really good for Morag's character development. So, I think it's a more purposeful filler arc here than here. Rock's filler arc had no purpose. And then Tantal's great. Tantal is tied with Letheria for my favorite area. The music's wonderful. Zeke meeting his dad again, and Zeke's whole character arc is phenomenal. It's really intense whenever King Eulogeminus takes Pyra, and they're locked in the prison. They're you really have to try to get there. Stakes are high. The stakes are high the whole chapter, really. Once you get to Tantal, the stakes just don't drop. The stakes are high getting Pyra back. The stakes are high when you're having to stop Tantal, or when you're having to stop Genbu from sinking, having to go get the Omega Fetter. Stakes are always high, and then the very end. Oh my gosh! Honestly, the final cutscenes, man. I may put this in S tier. I was considering A tier. I may put Chapter 6 in S tier. Those final cutscenes are something else. Yeah. Yeah, Chapter 6 and onwards is gotta go down. The final cutscenes in Chapter 6 are really... We want to talk about intense. Intense for a whole different reason. It's not intense because of action or anything. They're playing the song The Decision, and Pyra's is threatening killing herself so that Jin will stop torturing Rex. It's something else, man. The reveal, there's of course the reveal that Akos, Patroka, and Mikhail are Blade Eaters. Or one of them's a Blade Eater, the other two are Flesh Eaters. They don't reveal that he's a Blade Eater yet, though. But yeah, I'm starting to get tired. I'm sorry, I'm starting to get a little tired. But the ending cutscenes of 6 are great. And Tantal's huge and has great music. So, S tier. I mean, between Tantal and the story moments, S tier. Chapter 7. Oof. Okay. Chapter 7 begins with one of the most emotional moments in the entire series. Rex doubting himself and having to be reassured. The Flesh Eater reveal, yeah. Rex doubting himself really just ready to give up, and Nia punching him for it. Nia's characterization in that scene is so good. The way all the characters like just interact with each other in that scene, it's unbelievable. It's some of the best acting in the series. Best voice acting in the series, which is ironic for a game that people complain about the voice acting all the time, and I don't think I think in general Rex's voice acting gets better as the game goes on. This is some of the best voice acting in the series. Just that one scene. The characterization is some of the best in the series. It's great. Also being a flesh eater is also foreshadowed because you see his weapon's bloody core. Yeah, that's true. That's true. But he did have a Brona, which kind of hit it. But yeah, Chapter 7, first half is the Spirit Crucible Elpis, which I'm not a big fan of as an area. It's kind of an annoying area to explore, especially on a first time through. It's kind of carried by its music. The Spirit Crucible Elpis is great music. And all the character moments in there are great. Oh my god, the Nia reveal. One of my favorite moments in the game, easy. Honestly, okay. I was going to put 7 in A. I think 7 also has to go in S. Honestly? I know I'm saying that a lot. Ooh, 7 here. Oh yeah! I forgot that he does pull out his flesh eater weapon when he's saving Jin. I forgot about that. I'm gonna have to look at that again because I forgot that. I guess you can see his bloody core crystal there. That's interesting. Okay, I don't think I ever even noticed that. But now that I'm thinking back on it, you're right. Anyway, I may put Chapter 7 here. The more I'm thinking about it. Spirit Crucible Elpis is not great, but the rest of the chapter is fantastic. Nia's reveal... Nia, every time I play Xenoblade 2, I get a greater appreciation. Nia is really one of my favorite characters in the whole series. I love her arc so much. I love her characterization so much. I love the way she always has a line for every moment. She's great. She's best girl in Xenoblade 2. I'm tired. I'm sorry. That moment's great. They play Drifting Soul. They really make it her song. Adam talking to Rex in the Spirit Crucible. The boss against Adam is not great. The whole, like... I forgot what they call them. The Phantasms. The end of the Spirit Crucible Elpis. That's not a great boss. It's actually quite an annoying boss. Arguably as annoying as Lorithia. Especially on a first time through. But if you know how to use chain attacks well to do like area effect damage, it doesn't become too bad. But on a first time playthrough, it can be pretty annoying. But with all that being said, the Nia reveal, getting Zeke and Pandoria's backstory also in the Spirit Crucible Elpis, the first cutscene, all the stuff that happens in the Cliffs of Moritha, the Malos fight, the end. Oh my gosh! Tomorrow with you playing and Rex awakening the third Aegis Sword. Yeah, it has to go here. It has to go here. Possible to pass it off as him just resonate with a different blade because you don't see a core crystal or any sort of on Alkos itself yet. It gives you plausible deniability when you first see it, I guess. That's pretty good. But it's something you won't really notice until you watch back through. Very good writing. Yeah, I think I have to put Chapter 7 here. Rex awakening Numa is such a great moment, such a cathartic moment. It's definitely one of those great, anime awakening like transformation awakening moments. And just watching Numa go ham is always fun. Chapter 8. So Chapter 8 is the Land of Moritha. I guess we can do Torna while we're here, because Torna's technically supposed to be between 7 and 8. Or at least that's how they originally storyboarded the story. Storyboarded the game. Torna... I think it would be unfair to put Torna anywhere else than S tier. here. Torna really is, and I think the more I've thought about it, like, I was almost gonna say I think Torna is just as good as Future Redeemed, but I don't know. I think Future Redeemed's a little better. Torna really did set the gold standard for DLC stories, though, overall. And Torna's just one chapter. Torna doesn't have chapter divisions, so we're gonna just rank it as one chapter here. It's a one very long chapter. The way Torna gives so much more context to so many characters, the way they characterize Malos as being all cocky he's all cocky and playful and everything when he's in Torna the Golden Country before he got his ass handed to him by Mithra. But after the Aegis War, every time you see him in the main game, he's real stern and stoic. At least most of the time. He has a much more measured and real dingy attitude about him, whereas in Torna he was real cocky and playful. You really get to see that juxtaposition. Another character with great juxtaposition, speaking of which, in Torna, is Mikhail. People don't talk about this enough. Mikhail in Torna is like so reserved and closed off from everyone and introverted, and then you see him in main game Xenoblade 2, and he's like a whole different person. And Jin changed him. You can see that clear development arc. He stuck with Jin, and he developed over time. And just as Jin made changes in himself after Laura died, Laura's death affected Mikhail almost just as heavily. And we also know that Mikhail went through a hell of a lot of trauma even after that, because he had the Blade Eater experiments done on him in Indal. But you can see how his trust for Jin and how all of that started to grow back in Torna. Where all that came from. Mithra gets great characterization. There's much more context behind her character arc that really cements Mithra, in my opinion, as the better of the two Aegis forms, character-wise. Mikhail took a whole 180, just like Jin, exactly. Jin took a 180 from this person who is all like his calm and measured self in Torna to being much more hardened and aggressive in main game Xenoblade 2. It just gives so much context to characters. It's so good. And oh my gosh, the ending of Torna. You can see the ending of Torna coming, and then still fucking cry with it. Like, the entire fight between Malos and Mithra. By the way, the final boss of Torna is the best final boss in the entire Xeno series, bar none. The fact that you're fighting Malos and he has all that HP, and the Torna battle system is just as fun as it is, and you have the Siren battles in the background, you're able to control Siren against Malos' gargoyles, and you have all that going on in the background. The atmosphere they build there, oh man, it's so good. It's peak. No other way of saying it. You get to see Haze before, what she was like before Amalthus stole everything away from her. I also think Torna has great side quests. You can rag about the community. The community is probably the only reason Torna's not here. If Torna didn't have the community system and didn't have story progress hard locked behind doing side quests, it would be here. But the side quests of Torna are good, so I'll at least give them credit for that. They're very good. And also heartbreaking because the final boss is extremely tense. Yeah, exactly. Also heartbreaking because all the people die, and they all talk about in their side quests like their dreams and aspirations, and you just know they're going to die. So it's pretty heartbreaking. But anyway, Torna's great. Shouldn't have to say that anymore. All right, now to Chapter 8. Land of Moritha. Up to, I guess when Indal starts controlling the Titans. Chapter 8 kind of ends abruptly. I wish they would have cut Chapter 8 a little later. Or even a little earlier. Like, maybe cut it either just before they go up the World Tree, because it kind of just ends, like, the Chapter 8 and 9 bridge a really, really intense moment in the story when Indal's controlling all the Titans and all that war is going on. Torna's trying to fight back against Indal. But they kind of cut it at a weird point. It's just something little. Chapter 8's good. I don't think it's as intense. It doesn't have quite the intense story moments that, like, 6, 7, 9, 10 do. Probably my least favorite of the latter half of the game, but seeing the Land of Mortha, it really is something else. It really does put a lot of things into perspective, and it's great for seeing the, really getting a good feel of the game's themes in full force. Of the destructive power of humanity, but the fact that you have to live on in spite of the fact that the world is decaying and sucks. Also, the Infernal Goldo, Raheem and I have talked about that. Okay. Chapter 8. I think I'm going to put it... Going up the World Tree is great. I think here. Maybe here. I think I'll put Xenoblade 2 Chapter 8 right next to Xenoblade 1 Chapter 8. Even though this is much later in Xenoblade 2 than this is in Xenoblade 1. Alright. 9. Really starting to get tired here. Alright, 10 we already know is best of the best. Even better than Xenoblade 1 Chapter 6, Chapter 16, dare I say. Between the opening cutscene with showing the decision, showing the Klaus experiment from a different perspective and getting much more context on that, meeting the architect and learning the whole history behind the world, the final boss with Malos being so intense, even though I'm not a huge fan of the final boss gameplay-wise, still being a really great moment. The ending, everything. Chapter 10 is here. Seeing Elysium and having your hopes crushed, even though the whole theme of the game is about hope, it's something else. Yeah, Chapter 10's easily here. Seeing how the games connect, hearing Shulk's voice echo through the portal, it's something else. Something else, man. Chapter 9, S tier. Probably below 7. 9 is pretty short. It's just stopping Indal from controlling the Titans. Then there's the Jin fight and the Amalthus fight. Now, all of that stuff is amazing. Really, really great set pieces. But I think it goes here. Again, this is the half of the game that Xenoblade 2 is just so ramped up, and Xenoblade 2's last 5 hours are just some of the peaks of the series. One of the peaks of the series, I would say. Before Xenoblade 3, I would have said the peak of the series. The last 5 hours of Xenoblade 2. The way they just ramp up the action and the suspense. Make everything so much more intense. Yeah. Jin went out like a champ. I love Rex and Jin talking in their fight, and Rex reassuring Jin of the value of passing your goals and aspirations on to the next generation if you can't fulfill it in one lifetime. And that's the purpose for the blades. Or a purpose for the blades that they can use to give their lives a meaning. Which Jin had been seeking for all that time. Great. It's really, really great. Alright. Xenoblade 3. I wish I wasn't so tired talking about Xenoblade 3, but Xenoblade 3 is peak, best game ever made. I'm gonna go through this a little quicker, because I'm kind of tired. And I can't get coherent thoughts out as well right now. Okay. So, Xenoblade 3 Chapter 1. So, Xenoblade 3, I said that Xenoblade 1 was very consistently great, and Xenoblade 2 was inconsistently great, had high highs and low lows. Xenoblade 3 is like Xenoblade 1 in that it's consistently great, it's just consistently amazing, rather than consistently great. Every chapter in Xenoblade 3 is amazing. Helps that they're pretty long too, so you have to encompass a lot more a lot more varied moments, a lot more varied areas. All right, Xenoblade 3 Chapter 1 is I would say Chapter 1 is probably my least favorite. But only gameplay-wise. The only reason I say that is I do think that Xenoblade 3 starts out a little slow gameplay-wise. I like the tutorials. I think Xenoblade 3 has the best tutorials in the series. But that's not saying much, because the other games don't have great tutorials. And they're a little heavy-handed in the beginning. I do wish there was a way to skip them. And they give you, for so much of it, you can only play as Noah, who only has 3 Keves arts at his disposal and a Talon art. So the battle system starts kind of slow, and they don't give you very many options at the very beginning. It takes a little while to open up, gameplay-wise. Now, story-wise, Xenoblade 3 starts incredibly strong. Right into the action of introducing this weird and eerie world, and showing just how dark and melancholic the world of Ionios is for these characters. I'm going to put on some Xenoblade 3 music. Showing how dark the world of Ionios is for these characters. Showing the flashback to the characters younger, and having that kind of... There's this great, just eerie undertone to all of the world building in Xenoblade 3 Chapter 1. The way they show the characters as young and fighting and having to fight each other at such a young age so violently, and how homogenized they are, and how the war machine has just homogenized all of them. How the people have been brainwashed into this real putrid patriotism that's almost like stinging to hear after seeing everyone just get slaughtered in the battle. I think between that and the Ouroboros moments near the end, seeing Mobius for the first time, oh my gosh, the cutscene near the end of Xenoblade 3, the end of Xenoblade 3 Chapter 1 is so good. I can gush about Xenoblade 3 for many, many, many hours, and I am sure I'll get to whenever I get to play this game on stream eventually. But I guess I'll be the one doing the in-depth playthrough of Xenoblade 3 since J.R. Conway's not going to do one anymore. Yeah, the World 3 is so fucked up. But yeah, Chapter 1 has a lot of really great moments. All of these have great moments. That doesn't mean much, but the Mobius interaction's great. Mobius had the same level of hype, like the D specifically, but the Mobius as an enemy had the same level of hype around it that Metalface did. They did the same kind of thing, make him just terrifying, but also lovable to watch at the same time. The same kind of Mumkar effect. And then ending with all the characters introducing themselves and talking about like who they are and trying to like find an identity for themselves. It's not just war and military. And they all kind of struggle to do that. Some are better than others, but they kind of struggle to get along with that. They struggle to find like who exactly they are outside of just the war that just defined them for so long, trying to find who they are themselves, like as individuals. But also, as they go throughout the game, you can see their answers to those questions change. And like what they like to do and who they are and all that, their aspirations, their purpose in life. You see that just develop. It's a great groundwork to set at the very beginning of the game for the character's development. And I know some people aren't as big of a fan of the idea of having basically the entire main cast introduced at the very start of the game, rather than just collecting the main cast as you go like the other Xenoblade games. I love it personally. I think it makes them a lot more of a close-knit group, and it gives them a lot more time to develop as a complete unit over the course of the game. Xenoblade 3 is my favorite cast of characters in any video game. Actually, honestly, in any piece of media ever. I think that's a big contributing factor to why. All right, but I do think the gameplay limitations of the gameplay restrictions, I should say, of Chapter 1 limit it a little bit. Otherwise, it would probably just go in S tier, honestly. I think here in A tier is okay for me. Maybe here. The ending moments are just too good. That's good. That's good. I would say that's a fair place. Chapter 2. Chapter 2 is probably the shortest chapter in Xenoblade 3. It's just Milk Meadows, Aegis Wilderness, ends with the fight against the Colony for Ferranus and Mobius K. But, oh my god. The way they do the full, like, setting up Ethel at the beginning, and then building on that later, showing her come up again, showing her as just the badass she is. The level of threat and stakes they build with the huge Colony for Ferranus coming at the characters. And of course, the Ouroboros transformation scene, the first playing of Weight of Life. Peak. Peak. I would show it, but I don't want this to last too much longer. It's so peak. It's kind of short, so I can't put it too high. And the Aegis Wilderness isn't one of the more interesting areas. There's also still quite a bit of tutorials. I think I'll go here for Chapter 2. That seems good to me. 10 is... Chapter 10 is Valak Mountain for Xenoblade 1. So... yeah, I think that's good. I think the final cutscene of Chapter... or not the final cutscene, but the interlink transformation cutscenes for Uni Taion and Lancena in Chapter 2 is just way too good. The first playing of Weight of Life. Chapter 3, oh man. Oh my gosh, Chapter 3. I always think of Chapter 3 as Taion's chapter. It's really not. It's Taion and Uni's. And the characters really don't have chapters. They develop them all pretty evenly, and I really love that. Chapter 3 is where, gameplay-wise, the game is fully opened up, and you get to unlock a lot of the heroes. You get to go back to Colony 9 and get Xeon, Colony Gamma and get Teach. You get to get Valdi, Ethel for the short time that you can have her, Alexandria if you're strong enough to go get her at that point. They set up Isard and the final... Xenoblade 3 does a lot of that really well with its chapters. Like, the first cutscene of the chapter is usually some sort of flashback that sets up for something that will come back again later on in the chapter. They do that really, really well. The intra-chapter setups. They do that again in Chapter 3. It begins with the Taion flashback. And then, building upon that later, Isard comes back. Yeah, I love Uni and Taion's conversation around the campfire when they're about to go into the Orion tunnels, and Uni just saw her dead corpse. She doesn't really know how to process it, but there's some kind of trauma coming back to her, and she's shaking from it. Taion makes her tea and is talking about how he just lives day to day and just is grateful for all the days he has. Then tomorrow comes and the tremors are back. Then I think of tomorrow and the tremors are back. Will I see the same faces when I wake? Will I even be around to see them? It's great. And also, again, ending moments are great. The fact that the first 3 chapters all end with off-seeing is really fantastic parallelism. Right? Not end. They don't end with parallelism with off-seeing, but it's near the ends of all the chapters. It's great parallelism, and it ends them in just really beautiful ways. Taion's Ouroboros reveal, Senna's Ouroboros reveal, Mio's Ouroboros reveal in the ending fight against the Colony Lambda Ferranus is really good. Alright, I'll just go here. Maybe here. Really, Chapter 3 was just such a big moment and really just like Xenoblade 3 becoming just so special. I think it goes here. I think it goes in S tier. Maybe a little early to put one of these in S tier, but I think really Xenoblade 3 Chapter 3 goes in S tier. It's just so good. The way they do character moments in Xenoblade 3 is just unbelievable. It's out of this world. Unparalleled. The way they develop the Taion backstory. Tyon's one of my absolute favorite characters. But then again, the entire Xenoblade 3 cast is. Alright. 4, for similar reasons, but even better, 4 is, again, just peak. Maybe not above 2, Chapter 9. It's here. Chapter 4 is so good. Oh my god, Chapter 4 is so good. Mac the Forest is such an interesting and wild area to explore. Or Mac, did I say Mac the Forest? Oh my god, I'm tired. Mac the Wildwood. Mac the Wildwood. And there's the Noah-Mio flute exchange, Mio punching the Mobius, Ethel and Kamarabi having the most badass death scene ever, them going out fighting each other, and yet that's fulfilling their dream to them. Another Weight of Life cutscene fighting back against the Mobius in the most badass way possible. I always remember Uni and Mio telling Uni about her backstory with Miyabi, and Manana being there to give her the tissue is always memorable to me. When the party first gets to Mac the Wildwood and they're talking about Manana brings up the idea of a supervillain pun. Is the world really a supervillain pun? Like, is it the world itself that we're fighting here, foreshadowing how integral a part that Mobius plays in the world as a whole, and like the fabric of the world itself? And Noah's saying, look at the moon. It changes every night. It's always there. We give meaning to it. Bit dim tonight. Just like that, we have the power within Ouroboros to instill the world with our own meaning. It's so good. It starts to bring a lot of the themes. I mean, the themes of Xenoblade 3 are at the forefront from the very, very beginning, but Chapter 4 just does a great job of really pushing those to the forefront. And some of the best moments, most poignant moments in the series. That's only halfway through the chapter. Then you get to Syra Hovering Reefs, and that area is great. Kind of linear, but at least the music is really good. The Kevis Castle sequence is fantastic. Uni overcoming your fears to fight back against D&J is so cathartic. The inn reveal at the very end, the reveal of the fake robotic Melia, it's so good. The fact that across all of Xenoblade 3, the fight scenes are at their absolute best in the entire series. Something else, man. And then here comes Chapter 5. I know, Raheen, you talked about this earlier. But maybe you're going to disagree with this. I know Chapter 5, it ends in a heartbreaking way, to say the least. That's putting it extremely lightly. It ends and you want to throw your controller at the TV because it's so heartbreaking. But, in my opinion, in my humble opinion, Chapter 5 is the best chapter in the entire series. I legitimately think Xenoblade 3 Chapter 5 is the peak of Xenoblade. Reason being, when I first played the game, no, I think Chapter 5, okay, good. At least I understand the emotional reaction is that, but you also have to understand that that's part of the brilliance of Chapter 5 is getting you to feel that emotion so strongly. And the way they do that entire sequence with Mio at the end of Chapter 5, but that's not even, honestly, the ending sequence of Chapter 5 with Mio is amazing and heartbreaking and incredibly well done and well written, and A Step Away is beautiful, and it's hard to watch that final scene without breaking out into tears no matter how many times I watch it. All that's true, yes, but people don't talk about the rest of Chapter 5 is also fucking incredible. It's also so good. Fucking, again, we have, Chapter 5 begins with a flashback to Senna's time with Mio as cadets, and setting up for getting more Senna development throughout the chapter. Not quite as much Senna development as Tyon got in 3, or say, Ethel and Kamaravi got in 4, but still substantial development. Kind of starting to establish her parallelism with Shania, and her struggles with the inferiority with her inferiority complex. And then, man, there are not many moments in all of gaming that for me beat arriving at the Great Sword Base for the first time. Hearing the Sword Valley music remixed with a completely different tone, completely different atmosphere, this kind of sigh of relief that you get with that atmosphere. The fact that it's a swamp area, and that just that gives you nostalgia. Like, playing Xenoblade 3 at 12 o'clock at night, like, first week of college, freshman year, after already going through the entire Chemist Castle section, and just, I could not put the game down, arriving at the Great Sword's base is just this sigh of relief, and hearing bursts of nostalgia with the Sword Valley theme. Nothing like it. Nothing like it in nearly any game I've ever played. Followed by meeting the Lost Numbers, going to the city, the maternity ward scene, the graveyard scene, the characters learning what life is all about outside of their capitalistic, fucked up war environment, finally getting to learn what love is and what the true meaning of life is and why life is so sacred. Fuck, man, it's indescribable. That media shouldn't be able to do this. Peak fiction. Chapter 5 of Xenoblade 3 is just peak fiction. Not to mention, getting a fucking boat. That's a first in the Xenoblade series, besides Skells and Xenoblade X. Getting to explore the largest area in any of the mainline Xenoblade games, the non-X Xenoblade games, in Erythia Sea. Getting to go way off the beaten track if you wanted to, and encounter the two best heroes in the game, my two favorite heroes in the game, Fiona and Triton, who are lovable in their own rights. People dog on the Lagart prison section. No, they don't understand. Gondor is a great character. The back and forth that Noah and Mio have with Gondor, where Mio just gets so frustrated with Gondor's complacency in the moment, because she knows that her time is almost up, and she gets so frustrated with how complacent Gondor is with the way things are now, and wanting to save with the way things are now. Their back and forth is so good. The way that, like, the Lagart prison section is filled with mundane, tedious tasks, but the characters comment on that and they kind of make it enjoyable and funny, and it's supposed to feel like that because you're in a fucking prison. The in-boss fight is so good. The way they incorporate her gimmick into the fight is incredible, and the flute motif they add to the Mobius theme is so good. And then, of course, I've already talked about the entire Mio sequence. You hate Shania, you cry many, many tears for Mio, and then it all gets turned around when you see one of the greatest plot twists in video game history in Chapter 6. And I also have to give Chapter 6 S+. I think it's a little carried by the first half. I'm not gonna lie. I think it's a little, tiny bit carried by the first half. Although, Mio's side story in Capricorn Peak, I also think is a great moment. But that's why I can't put it here. Otherwise, I would. I don't think... Actually, now I'm thinking about it. The more we talk about Xenoblade 3, the more I'm so happy with my decision to go in completely blind. Yeah, these moments, completely blind, are just unbelievable. Just unbelievable. Beginning of Chapter 6 is something else, man. Getting to see all of Noah's past lives and how he made different decisions in each of those lives, giving so much more depth to his character. Seeing In's backstory, and the ultimatum that Zed gave him, seeing how he abandoned his child. Well, not willingly, he died. His time was up, his homecoming was up. Seeing how he took the path that he did, the mystery surrounding In's kid that ultimately gets cleared up in Future Redeemed, the setup for that at least. And then, of course, one of the best cutscenes in the series, the plot twist. Im having died instead of Mio, them having switched bodies. So good. It's I live for anime turnaround scenes where it's like the characters are backed against the wall and they make this huge, just phenomenal, epic, badass turnaround. That scene in Chapter 6 is like the best one I've ever seen across video games, anime, anything. Like, Mithra Awakening is a great example of that too, but oh my, and like Shulk getting Minato 2 is a great example of that too, but holy crap. Holy crap. Like, nothing like it. Mio and her Ouroboros going up to X's staff and breaking it. You're gotten ahead of yourself, X, and then everyone turning into Ouroboros. Them all shaking the chains off them when they were getting up. In being just whining, the catharsis you feel about In just whining and breaking down over the scenario, but then you feel sorry for him when you see it again. Second playthrough. I do think if I have one tiny nitpick with that whole sequence in Agnes Castle, I feel like there's kind of this weird tonal black and white that they go to right after that. Like, you fight In, and then In leaves, and then X unleashes the robotic Nia, the fake Nia. You fight the fake Nia, and then they release one more trump card, I should say, with the Annihilator. They direct it at the city, and the stakes are high, and then all of a sudden the stakes just drop, because then Gondor just shows up. And they kind of make it a little more comedic than it needs to be. I felt like if they could have maybe dragged that out a little longer, maybe like have the threat of the Annihilator going, and maybe you have to like run back and try to save the city, and you find them there, and then you find out the city's still alive. Having all that back to back was just kind of a tonal whiplash. Not too bad, but a little. I feel like they could have done that sequence a little better. Maybe that's how they could have incorporated Shania's storyline into the main story rather than having it just be Senna's side story, and could have given Senna's side story a little more Senna. But it is what it is. It's just it's a little nitpick I have. And then, yeah, rest of the chapter's great too. I've heard people online complain about Mio's side story. I don't get it at all. I think it was actually really great, and it brings to the forefront again some of the great themes of Xenoblade 3. The transformative power of art and music, the importance of memories and finding meaning in life. These soldiers who, like Kamaravi and Mwamba, who are taken as it really does. It gives you more reason to hate Mobius, and it gives you even more world building actually behind them, behind the flame clock system. The way they're able to, I've always found it interesting. Console Y mentions that the soldiers go through a base level of conditioning before they're born, which is really cool. I think that whole moment's just great. Them having to play their flutes to try to really bring the soldiers to their senses, almost breathing life within them. It's a good symbolism there. And then the end, people underrate Yorin. It's easy to dog on Yorin as a villain, but I think he's fine. He's not one of my all-time favorite villains ever, but I think he's pretty well done for what they did for him. He's not supposed to be the most likable. He's supposed to be a little weird and dorky and cringy, but because that's part of his character, and that's part of what makes him really tragic in a world that doesn't give him the chance to choose. And I like how that also ties very well into Lanza's character arc as well. his whole grief regarding surrounding Yorin and his own complex that he has to come through. Guilt. The immense guilt that he feels. And he had great stakes to that battle too, because Dee just comes in, shoots Nia, and then the stakes are raised for that battle. Great moments. Easily S+. In Chapter 7, I think overlooked Yorin the first time around. Oh yeah, I think his reveals in Mobius at the end of Chapter 3 is great too. I love the way he taunts the party, and the symbolism of the mud caricatures he creates is really cool. There's a really cool symbolism in Chapter 3. I don't know if I mentioned this, but there's a really cool symbolism in Chapter 3, where, you know, just before in the Orion tunnels, they were going through all this where Riku was trying to find the right gemstone. Like there were like pure gemstones versus unpure gemstones. They were trying to distinguish the difference between them. And they go from that to later on at the end of the chapter, you have Yorin making mud figures of real people, and the player having to wonder whether they're real people, their real emotions, their real expression, versus just a mud figurine that Mobius is constructed. There's some really cool symbolic parallelism with the concept of identity, of like personal identity, whether these soldiers are it kind of goes back to the scene in Chapter 1, right? What are these soldiers? Who are these soldiers outside of battle? What forms their identity? How can they make their identity their own outside of battle? And the message of Xenoblade 3 is just teaching you how to find that identity for yourself, that meaning in your life that's not just forced upon you by some higher power. All that stuff, the juxtaposition of purity in identity that's featured with the way Yorin uses his mud figures in Xenoblade 3, and the fact that comes in later too, the fact that you learn later on that Yorin was actually a sculptor, and that he never got to pursue sculpting because he just had to fight all the time, and how when he became Mobius, he finally did get to do sculpting because he got to make mud figures. That's also just so cool. There's so much just great symbolism, and Xenoblade 3 is so good. Alright, Chapter 7. Chapter 7, I used to not be the biggest fan of the first half of Chapter 7. I think Origin, everything from invading Origin to the end is phenomenal. I think Xenoblade 3 is the best ending in the series. I think, you know, people have problems with it. Fuck off. The whole theme of the game is learning to move on and learning to embrace an uncertain future. Like, I'm not gonna... Okay, I guess I shouldn't say fuck off. That's a little too aggressive. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have said that. But, like, if you didn't like... Here, I'll say this. If you found yourself not quite coming to grips with the sudden nature of the ending of Xenoblade 3, maybe try rewatching it and reevaluate it in the context of the themes of what Mobius represents of not wanting to move on, and what it means for Noah to defy Mobius and to create a world that can move on, what it means for him, that the fact that he also has to move on personally himself from the people he had created, and then getting back to a normal life also means giving up what he had built. That's not a good way to put it. Basically, embracing the future, as uncertain as it may be, because at least it's not the present repeating over and over again like Mobius wanted. Your longing for a more cohesive, happy ending is Mobius. There's a little part of Mobius within you. That's cliche, I know, whatever, but it's, you know, it's the message of the game. One of the big messages of the game, at least. So, the final boss against Zed is great. I think probably my favorite final boss of the main games, although I think the Malice fight in Torna is my favorite final boss overall. I think the Zed fight's probably my favorite final boss out of just 1, 2, and 3 base games. Although I do wish it had checkpoints. It's a bitch to speedrun, but I'm not counting that against it. The whole origin section's great. I do wish they gave X and Y a little more development at the end. It's kind of a one little nitpick thing I have. I don't think they... At the end of the day, they didn't really need to be important villains, but they were kind of made to be important villains, so you would think that they would give them just a little something when you fought them in Origin, but they don't even get death cutscenes. It's a little disappointing, but it's fine. I can live without that. I think Zed is actually a good villain. People debate about Zed being a bad villain all the time. Zed's a great villain. He's, of the main villain, I will say this. Xenoblade 1's main villain is Zanza. Xenoblade 2's main villain is Malos. Xenoblade 3's main villain is Zed. Of those three, I think Zed's probably my least favorite. I'll say that much. Because, really, he doesn't have a whole lot of personality. That's kind of the point. He's more of just an embodiment of uncertainty and fear of the future, which I think works, again, really, really, really well with the game, with the game's themes. And you do have... People say there's not enough of a reason to hate him, he doesn't have much of a presence. You do have a reason to hate Zed. You obviously have... Just seeing the state of the world and the way it is, and the fact that he pulls the strings of everything... That's enough of a reason to hate him already. And also, the whole I do it because it amuses me line. It's not just because it amuses him. He says that because he's trying to cope with his existence as a person who is the embodiment of fear and uncertainty. He has to cope with his existence by basically putting on a play for himself. That's what the theater is symbolic of. I could go on about this for a long time. I'm not really in the place to because I'm so tired, but Zed is a much more complex villain than people give him credit for. Yet, sure, he may not be as enjoyable or bombastic as Zanza or Malos, but he's really, really effective in conveying the game's themes. And I think his boss fight's phenomenal. So, for that, the Origin section's great. The Origin is a great final dungeon. It has some really cool puzzles and level design to it. That I think is good, and the music's great. And the Noah in fight's phenomenal. That fight is so good. Music is, of course, just outstanding. I used to have problems with the beginning of Chapter 7. I thought it was slow. I no longer agree with that. I actually really do like the Chris stuff. When I replay it more, I get a greater and greater appreciation for Noah's side story. And I think Chris was a very necessary character. I think that whole sequence was very necessary for Noah to really solidify what he believes and to really have his resolve ready for Zed. Knowing the context of everything that Nia told him, he needed another chance to be able to really strengthen his resolve and kind of reaffirm himself knowing what he knows now. And I think that was necessary. So maybe you can argue... Sure, it slows down the pacing a little bit to go track down the origin shards all across the world, but I think it was a necessary step to go in order to go from Cloudkeep to Origin. I think it would have been a little quick to go from Cloudkeep to Origin. Just my opinion. Anyway. S tier. It's S tier. Honestly, probably... I'll see here. Xenoblade 3 is just too good. Literally nothing below A tier. Xenoblade 3 is just too good. Alright. Future Redeemed, I'm gonna get through quickly. I gotta take a shower and get to bed. They're pretty short chapters anyway. Chapter 1 is literally just beginning up until they meet Glimmer and Nicole. It's good. I like the Matthew and A's interactions. They're funny. Matthew's a lovable dumbass. I think... Here. That's fine. Chapter 2, mostly just Matthew A. and Nicole trying to track down Glimmer again. You get to hear some of the best music in the whole series in Centomnia region, my favorite area theme in the whole series. And the ending fight with the fused console W, and Rex coming in to save the day, getting to see Shulk again, the goat, both of the goats really, but Shulk's the real goat. Great scene. I think 2, I'll say here. Forest Gower, yeah. Forest Gower Plains, I'll put it here. Yeah, that's good. That's good. It doesn't really... Okay, but I think Chapter 2 ends with just Rex. I think they don't even fight the console until the next chapter. So maybe... Honestly, maybe here? I think this is pretty good. It's really the later moments of Future Redeem that are peak. Chapters 1 and 2 are just kind of getting you started. I like your attitude, kiddo. Leave it to Uncle Rex. Let's show him a thing all 3. I think they end Chapter 2 with that line, too. Alright, Chapter 3... Chapter 3 is where shit goes down. Chapter 3 begins with the Console W fight, goes through seeing Colony 9 in Yesterdale again, going through the Ragmos Desolation, and then lore drop at the end with A and Alvis and the Trinity Processor. Honestly, it's definitely A tier. Definitely A tier. Seeing Colony 9 again is such nostalgia. Indescribable nostalgia. Same thing with hearing the Greatsword bass theming. Level with Sword Valley. I don't think it's better than Sword Valley. I don't think it's better than Chapter 3. It's actually in Chapter 5 either. That's solid. That's where I'll put it. 4 begins with the fight with Niall and In. Then Shulk and Rex explain everything to Matthew. And then most of Chapter 4 is Black Mountains, which is one of my favorite areas in the whole series. And then ends with the infight and getting to see the memories of the destruction of the city. Nah, S tier. Chapter 4 is S tier. Too good. Too good for this world. I don't think it's better than Chapter 7, than base game Chapter 7, though. I think that's solid. Solid. And then Future Redeem Chapter 5, you already know. It's S+. You already know it's S+. Where would I put an S+, though? That's probably good. Yeah, Chapter 5 is my favorite chapter in the whole series. And then Xenoblade 2 Chapter 10. Then Xenoblade 1 Chapter 16, that's the plot twist. The Zanza plot twist and all that. And then the finale of Future Redeemed. The finale of the whole series, really. That's the radio. So much lore dropping. So much lore dropping with that radio. Not to mention an amazing character moment between Matthew and Niall. Is this really what you want? Like, you know what happens to this world, right? Like, this is your paradise? It's such a good moment. The final boss with Alpha is phenomenal. I think my order for the final bosses: Malos Torna, Alpha, Future Redeemed, Zed, Xenoblade base game Xenoblade 3, then like Zanza, then Malos, or no, Zanza, then Fog King, then Malos, or Ion. Yeah, Malos, Alpha, Zed, Zanza, Fog King, Ion. I'd say that's my ranking for the Xenoblade final bosses. I guess Xenoblade X final boss, like, probably bottom. The fact that you're allowed to break your skull and you're not allowed to go back and repair it is really bad. Anyway. I think it's solid there. The ending of Future Redeemed is very, very good. I don't think it's not quite as emotional to me as the ending of... It's pretty close. It's pretty close to the ending of Xenoblade 3, but the radio is just so good. The fight with Alpha is amazing too. The fact that they match the atmosphere of the Zanza fight, but top it as well. They make the huge interlink at the end. Shulk and Rex giving their lives to their children, seeing the city start to get rebuilt. Matthew's interaction with In, seeing Fists of the End have the Pneuma core crystal. So much there. So much lore just in one chapter. I could see it going above Xenoblade 1 chapter 16. Maybe. I think it's close between these. Maybe if chapter 5 was a little longer. Like, if chapter 5 was a little longer and Niall just got a little more character development, besides just that one, basically her entire character arc is like that one scene with Matthew in the memory space, which is an amazing scene, but they could have set her up a little better and maybe just like make it a little longer, maybe give more of an explanation behind the Pneuma core crystal and what happened in the training process, or why they're in the Fists of the End, how they came about, then maybe it would be like here. But for right now, I think this is good. Alright, that's it. That's the list. I'm going to look at this now. Any objections to this list? I'm going to look through it, see if I can finalize this list. I think, alright, I keep looking at this. I think Xenoblade 2 Chapter 7 needs to go above 1 Chapter 9. 1 Chapter 9 is, again, phenomenal. The more I think about Xenoblade 2 Chapter 7, probably should go above it. 1 Chapter 9 is Prison Island. Chapter 7 has the Nia reveal and the Pneuma Awakening, which is such a peak moment. I think that'll do it. I don't see anything else that would move around. The Xenoblade X chapters I am a little fuzzy on, because it's been a long time since I've replayed Xenoblade X. It's been about 2 years. Maybe if they release a port, I'll be able to replay Xenoblade X and get a better idea for those chapters. But for right now, this is just from memory of those chapters. It'd be that. Maybe some of them will go up if I watch them again, but like I could maybe see these two going up. 11's a really emotion-packed chapter. Yeah. I think that'll do it. That's my list. That is all the Xenoblade chapters ranked. Save that for whatever purpose. There you go, if you're interested. May post that on the Discord. Anyway, that's that. I'm tired. I enjoyed this. This was pretty fun. Good night, y'all.